All right, guys. All right. I appreciate everybody coming up in here, guys. We're going to be talking about two cases in the house, guys. I wasn't sure if Michael was able to hear me in the beginning, but Michael, already, thank you so much, guys. We are live and we're going to be talking about two cases here. We're going to be talking about the David D. for BD case, guys, and we're also going to be talking about this Kristen Smart case. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Let me just test everything out to make sure everything is good. And once again, Michael, thanks again. Always there for me. I greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate it. Yeah, everything is good. Okay. So we'll be talking about these two cases, guys. I am Kelly from Why I Killed You TV. K to the E, double Lie. Kelly, that's me from Why I Killed You TV. Let's check it out.
So I've been checking out your YouTube channel, and you talk about these murder mysteries. Every other freaking word out your mouth is mofo this and mofo that. And so let me tell you something. Your facial expressions brighten up my mofo day. I am one of your most loyal and newest subscribers. You put a smile on my freaking face. Why I Killed You TV, keep up the good work. I love it. Love it. Love it. Guys, go ahead and make sure that you like, comment, share, and subscribe to this mofo right here. Kelly from Why I Killed You TV. All right, let's start this live right the freak now.
Those of you, this is your first time here. I am Kelly, K to the E, double Lie, from Why I Killed You TV. All right. All right, guys, we'll be looking at this first video. Guys, we already know that David D. for BD, his case has been delayed once again. I'm not really sure what's going on with this defense, guys. Let's check this out. This is really cray-cray.
Accused murderer David Anthony Burke, aka David, was back in an LA courtroom today, and this has shaken up the entire case schedule. What exactly happened? What can we expect next? And what does this mean for the defense and the prosecution? Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Possibility of parole, that's what potentially gets you the death penalty, even though there's a moratorium on executions in California. Murder of a witness, murder for financial gain, lying in wait. That he used a deadly and dangerous weapon, a sharp instrument. And the ME's office concluded that Celeste's cause of death was multiple penetrating injuries. Authorities alleging that David murdered Celeste to keep her quiet, that they were in an alleged illegal sexual relationship, her being a minor, that she was going to expose him, that she was going to ruin his career, a financially lucrative career. I did whole episodes on the potential evidence establishing where he was at in his career. They also talk about these alleged text messages the day before, the night before, where she was allegedly angry with him and going to expose him. And the allegation is that he murdered her to keep her quiet. And prosecutors claim that on April 23rd, 2025, he lured Celeste to this property in LA, Hollywood Hills, stabbed her repeatedly, watched her bleed out, and then proceeded to order supplies
What's up, Justice?
to engage in the dismemberment of her body and the cover-up of this alleged crime. Chainsaws, body bag, laundry bags, inflatable pool. They claim a combination of forensic evidence, surveillance footage, cellular data, DNA evidence, witness testimony, all ties him to these alleged crimes.
Wow.
So what happened in court today? For that, let me bring on somebody who was in that courtroom today. Investigative reporter Julia Deng is with us. Julia, so good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about this. Really appreciate it. I'm made of questions. I know this was a relatively short hearing, but very impactful, very important. First of all, how did David look? Let's start there.
Not great, Jesse, as you can imagine. I mean, we've talked about how he actually requested a haircut last time. It doesn't look to me like he got that haircut. He walked in wearing this orange LA County jail uniform, kind of lighter than what I'm wearing right now. He had a white long-sleeved shirt underneath it.
Sicko.
He did not look clean-shaven. Hair looked to be a little bit longer, very curly. But he was actively paying attention. You know, he was looking from attorney to attorney as they were speaking during this very brief status conference. And he did speak this morning. This was actually my first time hearing his voice live. It was brief. He just said, "Yes, Your Honor," when the judge addressed him. And it was a question about pushing back the upcoming dates in this case. So It is still, you know, a question as to whether or not this is going to trial. And the big takeaway from this morning's status conference is that we are going to have to do this exercise all over again. So there's going to be another status conference June 17th. And then this...
Guys, what's with all this pushing back? I do not understand it. See, when they do this kind of shit, this makes me nervous in the motherfucker. This makes me nervous. Okay, why I don't understand. And guys, I think that he was not supposed to appear until May the 26th. So why did he even go in there now? I don't understand, guys. It's just weird to me when they do shit like this. It makes me nervous.
Preliminary hearing that we've been talking about, May 26th. And as you've been reporting, Jesse, that was supposed to happen back in April. So now they've pushed that back again. That's going to be June 29th now. So David Burke was asked, you know, are you okay with that? And he just said, "Yes, Your Honor," and that he was led back out.
Okay, what was he going? Are you okay with that, David? Yes, Your Honor. What the hell was he supposed to say? No, I'm not cool with that. Anyway, guys, I'm not really sure what's going on with the bail. Justice, do you know anything? Or Michael, do y'all know anything? What's going on with the bail up in this camp? Is there still no bail for his behind? Because he's going to be sitting up there for a long time.
Okay, so I have a number of questions about this. There are those who say they wouldn't be surprised that the preliminary hearing was pushed back yet again. I mean, even if you talk about what's been reported, 40 terabytes of evidence,
that's
computers,
a lot.
tablets, iCloud. Even in the prosecution's brief, they talk about surveillance footage and cellular data and witnesses and different trips and all these Amazon purchases. And it's a big case, and it's one that has been investigated for quite some time. At the same time, Julia, I'm trying to understand why this is happening, because, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the defense who's asking now to have...
Good, Michael said no bail, and I'm glad. I'm glad that ain't no bail. But the whole thing in a nutshell, guys, how is he... And Michael, you did say there was a bunch of digital evidence on his behind, but I don't understand, how is he going to explain the 2 chainsaws, the swimming pool? How are you going to explain that? The body bags? How the doggone, all of the information, all of the videos and the doggone still pictures of child porn on your telephone? I don't know how he gonna go about explaining that, guys. That is weird. I said this before all this shit happened, okay? If they had any video or any still pictures of him and Celeste in the act, that was going to be his behind. And it looks like they do. This is crazy.
A delay, because weren't they the ones who said Blair Burke, his attorney, was pushing for a speedy preliminary hearing as soon as possible? And it was the idea, we're going to challenge the prosecution's evidence. We're going to challenge, because in a preliminary hearing, so everybody knows, right? The prosecution...
Michael, I'm just like you. I ain't sure that they prepared. Okay, because they said Blair Burke has never really, been hired regarding something to this magnitude. Okay, she done some DUIs or whatever the case may be, but they said Blair Burke, they say she's a force to be reckoned with, but they're not sure that she is prepared for this particular case. Okay, and I heard one attorney said that Blair Burke, she was going to take the money and run. And I believe what you said, Michael. I believe that she's going to milk this cow.
Prosecution has to present, not their whole case, but sufficient evidence to establish probable cause, low standard, but say, hey, we got enough here to support these charges, to move forward towards trial. Preliminary hearing, why it's an advantage for the defense is because they can challenge that evidence. So they wanted the prosecution, hey, we want this a preliminary hearing immediately. We want to see what you got. We want to challenge it. We don't think you have a case here. We don't think this is the cause of Celeste's death. And now, and correct me if I'm wrong, are they the ones today in court saying we need a delay?
They are. That is correct. And Jesse, you're absolutely right. This boils down to evidence. So Beth Silverman with the prosecution, she laid out how there is just voluminous evidence here. It totals, at this point, more than 40 terabytes. I mean, if you think about how much content you probably have saved on your phone, I mean, that's not even close to 1 terabyte. They have 40 in this case.
Oh my God.
So Beth said this morning
Dude
during this hearing, the prosecution started uploading their evidence last Thursday. And that's part of this case. They have to do that. Sharing that information between both sides, that's part of discovery.
Dude is off the chain.
Says the prosecution started that last Thursday. They have only uploaded, at this point, about 10 terabytes out of that 40.
Damn.
And then she went on to say, I actually wrote down this direct quote from Beth Silverman this morning, it could take them months to complete discovery with this much evidence. So now the defense.
So with that being said, I can see why they pushed it back. Because they ain't had a whole lot of time to look at all these damn pictures. How do you get this many pictures? And guys, they said that Celeste Rivas Hernandez, the reason why she was unalive is because evidently she was threatening David D for VD. Okay. She already knew that he liked corn. She already knew that. She already knew that he was under investigation. Okay, so she had that hanging over his head. But why, for the freaking life of me, would you let him trick you into getting in an Uber from Lake Elsinore? And he paid for an Uber for her to come from Lake Elsinore to where he was in the Hollywood Hills. She wasn't there for 20 damn minutes. And he unalived her, stabbed her 2 times, once in the liver. Okay, guys, you ever get stabbed in the liver, guys, you better hold some pressure on that motherfucker. Okay, you better hold some pressure. Okay, and they said that somebody said that David D. 4BD watched her bleed out. So somebody else had to have been in the house. Okay, because David is not going to say that. Is David going to say, oh, I watched you bleed out? No, he's not going to say that. Somebody was watching. Somebody was in the house. Who in the hell was that somebody? And I keep saying this, guys. I keep saying it. Okay, we already know David D. 4BD was there. Okay, I am questioning whether or not his brother Khalid was there. Okay, even though Khalid now he got his own little record deal, whatever the case may be. Khalid said he really didn't talk to David that much. He went to a couple of concerts and that was it. Guys, I find that very hard to believe. Okay, my third person, I always said it was Neo. Okay, and guys, we already know that Neo, he fled to Montana to be with his mama. And guess what? The Popo got him, brought him back to California to talk to the grand jury. He was only there for 45 minutes. People were thinking maybe he pled the fifth, and then come to find out, it was a great possibility that he sat there and rat David D. 4BD out. Okay, now that old crazy ass manager that he has, that touring manager, okay, Robert Morganroth, he actually used to live at the home on occasion. Okay. He showed up to the grand jury with a suit and tie on and sat up there and said that he didn't think it was his responsibility. We're not really sure what he was talking about when he said that was not your responsibility to tell us that there was an unalive young girl in the trunk of your client's Tesla decomposing. Okay, I'm not really sure. And then he had that other manager, Josh Marshall. Now, I'm not really too sure about Josh Marshall if he had any involvement, but guys, this case is weird.
This is pushing back. This is very much part of their strategy. This is not surprising. You know, they would benefit from having more time just to prep.
They need more time.
So they said, the defense, you know, we've requested DNA evidence. We have not gotten that yet. They also said they haven't gotten the witness narratives they were hoping for. So their argument is we need more intel to prep before this can even go to a preliminary hearing.
There's some terabytes for your ass.
The prosecution, of course, also not surprising. They're pushing back as well. They're saying, you know, is this going to be a real thing? Is June 29th going to be, they called it a go date? Or are we going to have to go through this again? Push it back again.
Oh, my God.
The judge was very stern about that. She said, you know, we have to be clear. If we're setting the date for June 29th this time, if this is going to be pushed back again.
And you know what? I got to agree with Michael. Michael sat up there and said that his brother is now acting like he don't know him. I don't believe this shit. You and your brother, Khalid, and guys, people, some of y'all get on my ass about how I pronounce Khalid, Caleb, or whatever the hell his name is. I don't give two shits. You know the hell I'm talking about. Anyway, yeah, I do not believe that Caleb, Khalid, whatever the hell you want to call him, I do not believe that him and his brother are not tight. Okay? Do I think it is the wrong damn time to start a record deal? Yeah, I think it's the wrong time. I really think, and I believe that Caleb, Khalid, whatever the hell you want to call him, I think he's been consulting with his daddy. Okay, now I had slipped up and said his daddy was an attorney, but evidently his daddy works for an attorney office. But you cannot tell me, Khalid, Caleb, whatever the hell your name is, you have not consulted with your daddy about this little record deal you have. Now, I'm not really sure if he's still trying to make records or whatever the case may be, but I thought it was inappropriate as hell. Michael, don't be laughing at me.
At a fourth time now, we have to get that motion in writing. Beth Silverman says this kind of thing can go on. She's, in her experience, had this kind of thing go back and forth and be delayed for...
Guys, type a 1 in the chat. Type a 1 in the chat if you think that Beth is ready. Okay? Type a 1 in the chat if you think that if Beth is ready. Because, guys, I'm getting kind of scared. Sometimes I'm thinking that it's going to be cool in the gang and he's going to get what he's supposed to get. Because remember, guys, David D for VD, he did this in the state of California. And California got the weird-ass law, guys, that if you are caught concealing an unalive body, that you're only going to have to pay a $10,000 fine and be in prison for 1 year. There's a lot of people who do that with their damn eyes closed. Okay, guys, my contact information is right below. Email, Venmo, Cash App is right below. Guys, be sure to go ahead, like, comment, share, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it, guys. Please push that like button and that notification button, guys. I would greatly appreciate it because that helps with the algorithm. Guys, I get nervous. I get nervous. Sometimes I'm thinking that this guy might not get, what he should be getting, guys, because this was freaking senseless. This does not have to happen.
Years. The judge saying this morning she promises this is not going to go on for years. So I think June 17th is going to be a sure thing for this new status conference, and then June 29th.
Well, here's what's tricky about it. It's prosecutors, seemingly, even though there was reports of multiple grand juries, and grand jury could be a way you get an official indictment. Defense doesn't have a role in it. It's a secret proceeding. You get an indictment, you move forward. If you don't go a grand jury route, and clearly there hasn't been a grand jury indictment, even though there have been reportedly grand juries impaneled to hear evidence in this case, now you have a preliminary hearing. And 100%, this is where it gets complicated because the defense has an opportunity to challenge the evidence. It can get pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and delayed.
That's sad.
And just from a point of law, I'll tell everybody, that's a concern for the prosecution, right? They believe that David committed these alleged crimes. They want justice as soon as possible. They don't want to keep pushing this case along.
Exactly.
Evidence
It's weird.
can get stale. Witness testimony could be upended. So it's in their interest, too, to have this preliminary hearing sooner rather than later. And by the way, when you mention DNA evidence, you go back to the prosecution's brief. It says DNA evidence developed from blood stains collected from defendant's garage, which match the victim's genetic profile. So that was interesting. By the way, you mentioned witnesses. Do we have any idea? Was it revealed to us any idea who these potential witnesses are?
Yes, break it down, girl.
We don't. That is one of those outstanding questions, and I think, Jesse, you actually did an entire podcast segment dedicated to this question. We don't. And it sounds like part of the defense's strategy to just stall here and buy themselves a little bit more time to prepare during this pretrial period is citing the fact that they don't have any kind of narrative relating to witnesses. They don't know who the possible witnesses might be who could be called for this case, and they don't have DNA evidence. They say
What's up, Justice?
But let me tell you what the prosecution did share. They say they have already shared lab reports, they have shared LAPD reports, and they've shared, again, about 10 terabytes of evidence.
Wow.
So if it really is 40 terabytes, that's about 25% here. And I don't know what kind of server they're uploading this to, but again, they started doing this last Thursday. So open-ended question here as to how much longer that's going to take. But talking to media crews out here, we've all been speculating, there's likely a lot of video content.
Okay, Michael said Neo. These are the people that Michael is saying, and I agree. They're going to call in Neo's monkey ass. Because, guys, Neo and David D4VD, and I ain't trying to get off on no gay shit, okay? Love me some gay people, okay? Got friends, cousins, co-workers, love me some gay people, but evidently, guys, there was something peculiar going on with David D4VD and Neo, okay? So I agree with Michael. It's going to be Neo. I believe with Michael, it's going to be Asia with her goofy behind, okay? Because, guys, all of it, they was thick as thieves. Okay, it's going to be Caleb or Caleb or whatever the hell y'all call him, and it's going to be that manager. I totally agree. It's going to be both managers, Michael. Okay, not just Robert Morgenroth. I believe it's going to be that other manager too, Josh Marshall. Okay, guys, this is weird. This is weird, and they pushing this back, guys. Jesus Christ, I know the family was like, oh my God, but I've said this before. I'm gonna say it again. Evidently, the family of little Celeste Rivas Hernandez, guys, they have been cleared of any wrongdoing. Okay, but guys, what in the hell? Okay, I do not understand it for the life of me why you didn't do more to keep your daughter away from this fool. I just don't understand it, guys. She met him on the internet when roughly she was about 10 or 11 years old. And then, guys, they started getting upfront and personal when she was about 13. There is a 5-year age difference between David D4VD and little Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Okay, now I don't understand. He was already under investigation. I don't understand. He was already under investigation. Why in the hell would you have to unalive this girl? Okay, I've said this in other videos. I would have just told her, okay, Celeste, good luck hanging this over my head, telling the popo we had a relationship. Good luck with that. Why did you, now you got a murder case on your dumb behind. This is weird.
In that 40 terabyte dump. That's typically what takes up the most space. So we already know some of that video involving Celeste and David and their alleged relationship that will not be played for the jury if this eventually does go to trial.
I'm so glad you mentioned.
And you know what? I have to agree. I have to agree with Justice, because evidently she is saying that she believes that Caleb, whatever the hell y'all want to call him, evidently that he knows more. He knows more. He is involved. Guys, when you have a sibling, I got a little brother. Can I call my little brother and say, hey, I just unalived somebody, help me get them in the front of a Tesla? Hell to the no. But my brother would be there for me, but he ain't helping me get nobody in the front of a Tesla. That's not going to happen. But I believe that Caleb, whatever the hell y'all want to call him, I believe he is involved more than what he's saying.
In that, because as we're understanding what this is, I remember in one of the initial hearings, the prosecution said they found a large volume of alleged child pornography on David's devices. Now, they didn't confirm that was 100% Celeste, but let's remember he is charged with a sex crime with respect to her. This
my God.
Illegal sexual relationship is not only its own individual crime, but it goes to the murder charge. It goes to the special circumstances.
This is sad.
Prove he was having this relationship with her, didn't want it exposed, wanted to keep her quiet. She was threatening him. That goes into it. And of course, I mean, there's other digital data, there's cell phone data, there's surveillance footage. By the way, just taking a quick step back, since you're our eyes and ears there, was it a packed courtroom? Like, who else was there? Was there anybody in support of David? Was Nathan Hochman there, the Los Angeles County District Attorney? Who was in that courtroom today?
We got somebody in the house.
It was largely media this morning. We did look around in the hallway before we even got into the status conference to see if perhaps he had any supporters. I know last time, during his last court date, David did have at least 2 friends, 2 supporters with him. There was no family present this morning, nobody for either David or Celeste. I think it was just the defendant with his uncut hair, his orange jumpsuit.
You know what? Summer brings up a very good point. Guys, there is a video. There is a video going around. Matter of fact, I put that video in my video, I believe, a couple of days ago. Okay? David D4VD evidently, when he had that Uber go pick up Celeste, I believe that was April the 23rd. Guys, April the 23rd, 2025. They had been arguing on the damn phone, text messing each other. Okay, She telling him what she gonna do. I'm gonna tell the po-po, blah, 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 that you like raping kids. Why in the hell was she getting the Uber, guys? I don't know, but she got in the Uber. She got to his house. She was there for 20 minutes. He unalived her, stabbed her twice, once in the liver. Guys, he turned around and had a party the very next day. Summer is absolutely correct. He had a party at the house the very next day, and evidently her decomposing body was in the house. And David is trying to blame the fact that he had a shit in the bathroom for the funky ass smell that was going around in the house. But guys, if you really look at that video and you look at Neil, monkey behind, Neil is looking nervous than a motherfucker. And then all of his friends was laughing, and then even somebody else come, oh, I took a shit too, whatever the case may be. But guys, Neil is looking nervous on that video. Now, I'm telling you guys, somebody was in that house. Somebody was in that house the day that it happened, that he unalived her. And then evidently, he took some of her belongings and took his ass to Santa Barbara. And guys, he threw out some of her belongings. Evidently, they found her passport in Santa Barbara. Now, I thought in the beginning that he was out there in Santa Barbara trying to figure out where he can finish her off. Because remember, guys, there was an incinerator that was delivered to the house using some gift cards. And I was thinking he was out there with the incinerator, with her remains in the front of the Tesla, and that he was going to finish unaliving her out there in Santa Barbara. Come to find out, guys, that he was out there disposing of her belongings. Evidently, some of that shit was fine. So I don't understand how he gonna sit up here and say, oh, no, this had nothing to do with me, guys. This shit is weird. I don't understand it.
And then defense attorneys. So it was largely media in the back two rows in this courtroom, prosecution, defense, and it went by very quickly. They started within 5 minutes of 8:30.
This is sad.
Start time. Very clear on directions. No cameras, no cell phones, and it wrapped up within about 10 to 15 minutes.
And by the way, what was his interaction like with his defense attorneys? I saw a report, I think, could be wrong, but you'll correct me if I'm wrong. Did he wink at his defense attorney at one point?
No, he didn't.
What was that interaction?
Are you serious?
This is a fascinating human, Jesse. If I ever had
I know he didn't do that.
To interview David, I've got questions for this man. He seems incredibly comfortable sitting there.
Arrogant.
He was resting his elbows on the table at one point.
Arrogant.
I mentioned earlier he was listening actively to the back and forth between prosecution and defense. He was looking from attorney to attorney. At one point, I think I saw him nodding.
Arrogant ass.
He made eye contact with the judge. He spoke once when he was asked if June 29th would be a go date, a good rescheduled preliminary hearing date for him. He just said, yes, Your Honor. He spoke clearly. He did not seem shaken. He did not seem like a defendant being charged with first-degree murder. And that's not it. I mean, we're calling this a murder case, but there are 2 additional charges on top of that, including continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14.
We got a sick motherfucker on our hands. That's what we got. A sick, arrogant mofo on our hands. David D4VD, he thought he was going to get away with this, guys. And I am still thinking, because of this goofy ass California law, that it's a great possibility he might get away with this. Guys, this is sad. This did not have to happen. This is so sad.
And then it's not just murder, it's mutilation of that murder victim's corpse. And I know we haven't delved into this yet today because we don't yet know if the DA is going to ultimately pursue the death penalty, but that's an option in this case because of the special circumstances on top of that murder charge. And I believe, Jesse, in the state of California, you only need one special circumstance to be eligible for the death penalty. In this case, it's not 1, it's not 2, it is 3.
Wow.
And
okay, let me tell you something. The death penalty in the state of California don't mean shit. Okay, because the governor and I shouldn't say we have, guys. Guys, those of you who have never been here before, I live in 2 different places. My home is Texas, but I work out here in California. But the governor out here, guys, they don't believe in the damn death penalty, so that'll just be the death penalty on a piece of paper. Now, I do have to agree with justice. Evidently, David D. VD, they said that his guys, I could not believe this when I heard it, that he sat up there and thought that by bringing her unalive body, putting it in the Tesla and taking the Tesla out in the elements, just letting it be parked out there in the middle of nowhere, okay, right around his little mansion, that he thought that was going to help her decompose in even more. That makes no sense because of the heat and this, that, and the third. Evidently, guys, this happened roughly around August and in September when her unalive body was put in the trunk of the Tesla. To me, it would have made more sense to leave the Tesla in the garage because it get hot in the garage. Okay, to leave the Tesla in the garage with her body in the Tesla. But first of all, I would have left her in the little swimming pool and let her decompose in the swimming pool. I wouldn't even put her in the Tesla, but that's his thing. But guys, I honestly believe, because one of you messaged me and told me about your theory, and your theory became my theory. Okay, I believe that David D. VD, even though they're saying that was his last, that's what he wanted, was to leave the car out there, and that was it. He was going to go on tour and come back. But we already know that the damn car got towed. Okay, it got towed. And I don't understand how some of you can say, oh, well, he got framed. How the hell he get framed? That body had to have been in the front of the Tesla before it left the mansion. And Steve Fisher finally said that it was David D. VD that actually drove that Tesla last and then hopped his ass on the tour bus. Okay, but I am believing, just like Justice, guys, I'm believing that somebody was supposed to get that car with little Celeste Rivas Hernandez unalive body in it. I've said this before. I don't know if they were going to crush it, burn it, drown it, whatever the case may be. But if that was his harebrained idea to leave my Tesla out there and just let her finish decomposing in the front, guys, that's weird.
Look, there is a moratorium on executions in California, but that's even besides the point. I mean, this goes to this whole idea of if they decide to go that way, it would, prolong the trial, would make it a little bit more complex. But you're talking about the ultimate punishment. Not surprising when you talk about this crime. Yes, he's innocent until proven guilty, 100%. But you were talking about the brutal slaying of a 14-year-old girl who was dismembered and also allegedly sexually abused. It's a really, really horrific crime. By the way, I have a couple minutes with you, Julia. You've been following this case, I believe, from the beginning. You've been following it for quite some time. As you're in that courtroom and you're listening carefully to the discussions that's happening between the attorneys and the judge, what is your biggest questions that you want answered right now? What are you looking out for in terms of the evidence? I mean, thank you for talking about the episode we did on the witnesses. I think that's a crucial discussion, whether or not it's going to be somebody like Neo Langston, or it's going to be David's family, or it's going to be the Riverside County Sheriff's deputies, or it's going to be the medical examiner or members of the medical examiner's department. I mean,
believe it or not, guys, David grew up Christian. He was into Christian music until he got on that Fortnite gaming website or TikTok or whatever the case may be. And guys, what happened was, this is how he got his celebrity status, guys. He was doing that little Fortnite shit, okay, playing on stupid ass games. He was getting copyright strikes because he was using other people's music. And so he talked to his mom, hey mom, what can I do? I'm using other people's music while I'm playing this little stupid ass Fortnite game. And his mother said, son, make your own music. And then this motherfucker blew the fuck up. He started using his own music. He started creating his own music in his sister's closet. Okay? And then he blew the hell up. He made that romantic homicide assault, whatever the case may be. And to tell you the truth, guys, I did not know who he was. I did not know who he was, guys, until this happened to little Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Now, I'm going to tell you what, that romantic homicide, it got a good beat. Okay, but the lyrics are strange in the mouth.
You tell me what you're looking out for, what you're keeping an eye to, and ear and an eye to as you're in court for these hearings.
Number one question, Jesse, is what you've been covering extensively. Who are the witnesses going to be? What is their testimony going to entail?
Exactly.
I think another big question is relating to some of the more definitive language we've seen in the charging documents. How do prosecutors know, for example, that David stood by and watched Celeste bleed out? My big question is, was there
he watched Celeste bleed out. He ain't gonna say that. David is not gonna say that. Somebody had to have been there. He wasn't there by himself. And another thing, guys, you know who's going to really be there to testify? You know who's really going to be there to testify. And I'm sure some of y'all ain't even thought of this shit yet. The damn Uber driver is going to be there to testify. Because remember, the Uber driver picked Celeste up from her home. Evidently, it's like an hour and a half drive from her home to David DeForvidi's home. And I'm sure they had some conversation. Okay, and David's dumbass sat up there and ordered the Uber off his damn telephone with his damn credit card. Okay, that is weird. They gonna talk to the damn Uber driver. Now, I'm not sure when the Uber driver dropped Celeste off, was David waiting outside or whatever the case may be. If he was, he just a dumbass. You already was a dumbass for ordering the Uber using your damn credit card and your cell phone. So I'm sure the Uber driver and Celeste were having some communications. I don't know. Maybe she said, oh, I'm going to see my boyfriend. We having problems, this, that, and the third, whatever the case may be, because that Uber driver is going to be key.
Some kind of home surveillance video that captured this, I mean, that wouldn't be out of the question. Many people have cameras in their homes. David was also an individual who was very comfortable around cameras. I mean, he was constantly live streaming, snapping things, recording things.
Two weirdos.
Could there be footage actually showing that act? And then I also want to point out, the wording of what defense attorneys have said. They're denying the charges. David has entered a not guilty plea on all of these counts. But they're saying that he was not the cause.
All right, hold the hell up. Hold the hell up. Hold the hell up, guys. Look here. I've been on here for quite some time. Okay, 37 minutes and 33 seconds to be exact. And I got 9 likes. Come on, guys. Let's get these damn likes up. Let's get, guys, this helps with the algorithm. Let's get the likes up, guys.
Of her death. That raises the question, who was? Could there be somebody else involved? Could somebody else
He ain't do this by himself.
When I was waiting to get into the courtroom this morning, I was talking to a couple other journalists covering this case. That's what we're all wondering at this point. Who else may have helped? Who else could have been involved? And what additional cases, what additional charges and defendants could we see coming out of this? I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think this defendant is going to be one of several as Celeste and her family and her community fight for justice.
I'm so glad you mentioned this because it raises a number of different questions. I've talked about it multiple times about, is it possible a 20-year-old singer, the allegations are true, killed this 14-year-old, took steps to disfigure
allegedly,
her body, and ultimately did it, took that.
Now this picture here, this picture right here, guys, they were saying that it was a great possibility that David was in Lake Elsinore where little Celeste Rivers Hernandez lived, okay, and that he was paying a junior high school student who was one of Celeste's classmates $1,000 to give her a cell phone. And the reason why he was out there doing that is because her parents had took her cell phone because they had found out that she was having a relationship with David DeForvidi. Now, guys, there has been rumors and speculations. There was a great possibility that the parents were getting paid off by David DeForvidi to have the relationship, to keep the relationship quiet. To the tune, and guys, this is just rumors, to the tune of about $10,000 a week, okay, to keep their mouth shut. Okay, that was $40,000 a month that they were getting paid to keep their damn mouth shut. And I don't know if it's true or not, whatever the case may be. I've always said this. I believe that little Celeste Rivers Hernandez grew up too fast. I believe she grew up too fast, guys, because evidently David was not her first boyfriend. She had a boyfriend named Gus, and Gus was older than a motherfucker. He was older than David. He was older than David. So when did you have time, little Celeste Rivers Hernandez? And I ain't trying to dog out the dead, but when did you have time to date Gus? You met David when roughly you about 10, 11 years old, and y'all started going out, evidently, allegedly, when you were about 13 years old. When did Gus come in there? Okay, and Gus was older than David. That's weird.
Alleged trip to Santa Barbara to hide evidence, sure. But is it also possible he may have had some help? I asked Nathan Hochman about this on my News Nation show, and he wouldn't obviously confirm one way or another whether they're looking into any other people, there are going to be any other arrests. But it also goes to the idea of other charges. If there's child pornography allegedly on his devices, or you're talking about a minor who was allegedly brought across state lines and there's sexual activity, is there sex trafficking? I did an episode on that too. But you also talk about the cause of death. And I think that one of the complicating factors here is her body was in that Tesla for quite some time, decomposed, dismembered. How exactly, I mean, will the defense bring their own forensic pathologist to try to push back and say, how do you know definitively?
Okay, I gotta laugh at Michael because he always pushes the like button. I'll never have him. Guys, the people that's in here, I never have no problem with people who is in here talking, chatting. My chatters, guys, I don't never have no problem with them pushing the like button, but you other motherfucker. Sometimes y'all don't want to push the like button, whatever the case may be, guys. But this whole case is weird. He didn't have to do this little girl like this. She never got a chance. She never got a chance to turn 15 years old. I've said this before, guys. David D4BD stole childhood. He stole her childhood. He had a chance to be a child. Shit, he got a little sister. Would you want this to happen to your little sister, David? No, I don't think so. Okay, if all the women in the world, there were women throwing panties at your ass at the damn concert. Why didn't you fool around with one of them? Why didn't you fool around with Asia? Seemed like she liked your monkey ass. Why didn't you fool around with her? No, you had to fool around. You had to be in romper room. You had to be in romper room. There was a 5-year age difference between little Celeste Rivas Hernandez and David D4BD, and this shit is safe.
It was multiple sharp force injuries. Is there something else that might have contributed to this? Do you have evidence of maybe the cleanup and the dismemberment, but not necessarily the murder?
That's sad.
Going back to that other point about, how they know she bled out, I'm split on this. I interviewed Joseph Scott Morgan, and he basically said he believes there could be a witness to this. He also talked about the surveillance footage. It's also possible they're just making an assumption based on, they look at the cell phone data and they say, well, this is when she arrived, right, by the ride share. This is when her phone activity stopped. This is when David allegedly sent a text message to her 20 minutes later to maybe cover up his tracks, maybe create an alibi. And that's why they believe that he stabbed her or allegedly stabbed her and just watched her bleed out because there was no calls to 911 or emergency services.
And see, guys, and Justice brought up a good point. She brought up a good point. Guys, how in the hell are you going to sit up here and tell me that David was framed when the very finger that, because, guys, she had a couple of tattoos, one that had shh on it. Okay, her and David had matching tattoos that said shh on it. And then she had another tattoo on one of her fingers that had his name on it. So if somebody was trying to frame him, they would have left that damn finger on there. No, but that is the very finger that they cut the fuck off. That's how I know. That's how I know, allegedly, because I ain't trying to get sued. That's how I believe that it was you who did that. Because why would anybody else who's trying to frame you cut off the finger that says David on it? That makes no sense. To keep the finger on, they would hurry up and trace it back to your monkey behind. But that's not what happened. The finger was sawed off. Okay? Chainsaw, I guess.
So they might be making a guess here. I have to ask you one more part about this. You're in LA. I'm not in LA. You're in LA. There has been so much discussion about the coordination, the cooperation between the ME's office, the LAPD, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. As somebody who covers these stories and somebody who's in LA, whether it's this case or other cases, is there disagreement amongst these different organizations? Are they usually in lockstep? Because there's been so many questions about why there's been a delay and why there's information that's concealed.
That delay making me nervous.
Pregnancy in the prosecution's brief, and yet the medical examiner now had to change the update to it's not known if she was pregnant. I think they did that for other reasons. But I'm just curious, in your experience, what should we be thinking about? And to be clear, when I interviewed Nathan Hochman, he said they're completely lockstep.
Guys, I was hoping that Celeste was pregnant. I was hoping. Because if she was pregnant, and she was pregnant by David D4BD, then we would have got his ass. Then we would have got him. But guys, I don't know. It's sort of kind of up in the air whether or not she was pregnant. Now, I'm not really sure if she was pregnant. But guys, if she is pregnant, That's going to be the final nail in David's coffin.
There's no surprises. They're in it together. They know what they're doing.
Mr. Deed in the house.
I'm just curious your perspective.
There is so much to unpack here. There are so many questions, Jesse, about the coordination and the timing. And I think the biggest thing that happened in this case that we don't typically see with charges of this magnitude, I mean, the LAPD made the arrest on, what was it, April 16th? And it wasn't until April 20th that charges were filed.
Sad.
So that alone raises questions about the coordination. Why were charges not filed first? Did LAPD do that because they were trying to force the DA's hand? And if so, what was the holdup? What was taking them so long to investigate when it seems to all of us
What's up,
like they
Mr.
already
D?
had overwhelming evidence? They had probable cause here. So a lot of questions. You know, I don't want to give rise to any additional conspiracy theories. I think everybody on the internet is buzzing about all of this already, but just the facts of the case here. Arrest on April 16th, charges not filed until days later.
Weird.
And then now information being changed. I think that part about Celeste not being pregnant and then that not being able to be definitively determined, that may have something to do with this state of decomposition. But that is one of the questions that I think you've debunked on this podcast. There does not appear to be any definitive evidence pointing to the fact that Celeste was pregnant.
Oh my God.
If that does emerge at some point, that for sure is
I
going to
pray
add
she
additional
was.
charges onto what is already a stunning and an incredibly disturbing case against David.
Yeah, and just the final point before we wrap up, I'll say if prosecutors knew that she was pregnant, they would have 100% have included that. I mean, what better way to establish an alleged illegal sexual relationship to show he needed to allegedly keep her quiet, take the allegations are true. I mean, proof of pregnancy, they would definitely
weird.
put that in there. Now, I will say, it seems to me, yes.
I hope she is, or was, shall I say.
Say that. And I think also they have to put unknown, considering the prosecutors say there were messages, text messages about pregnancy and Plan B and things like that. So I think the investigative portion of that is what led to it. Julia, thank you so much for taking the time.
Guys, this is getting weird. This is really getting weird up in here, okay? And now they done push this shit back. I'm not really sure what the hell's about to jump off. I've said this in the beginning, guys. I'm not really sure that David D for BD is going to get what he deserves. Okay, guys, my contact information is down here. My Venmo, my Cash App, my email is there, guys. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe, and push that doggone notification button. Guys, this is weird.
The biggest mysteries and question marks still surrounding the David case is exactly what was going on behind the scenes with David and Celeste's relationship. We've seen enough evidence to suggest that he was seemingly in a relationship with this minor who was only 14 when she lost her life and was brutally murdered and cut up and put in the trunk of this idiot's Tesla. But one of the big things that has really been kind of muddying the waters with regards to the relationship between Celeste and David is the rumors of pregnancy. Now, obviously, she's a minor. Any sexual interactions between him and her are illegal, statutory, right? Ain't no debate, ain't no consent, it's not even possible. But apparently, according to prosecutors...
Yeah, Justice, I'm not really sure if we really know if she was pregnant or not, guys. They sort of kind of on the fence with this right now.
There have been, messages between them that suggest maybe a pregnancy had occurred, maybe an abortion was being planned, maybe Plan B contraceptive was being used, these kinds of things. And it's still not conclusive as to whether this was true. It seems to suggest from the prosecution, at least based on conversations that David and Celeste were having, that there was some kind of pregnancy scare, but we don't know the full facts at this stage. So in this video, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the theories, some of the evidence, some of the discussion around Celeste being pregnant, potentially at the time of the murder, and that might give even more motive to why David could have allegedly murdered this little girl.
This is sad.
Because she might have been pregnant with his child.
There you go.
That would have been pretty bad for the career. She was apparently threatening to ruin his career. If she was pregnant, hey, that would be even worse. Okay, and I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying that. I'm not disgusting. All disgusting. And if that was true, it just makes the story even more despicable. And
disgusting. My God.
So this is TMZ's reporting from about just over a week ago. Okay. It's a David murder case. Unknown if Celeste was pregnant. The death certificate was updated. So this was really interesting. They announced that the death certificate on Celeste Rivas Hernandez was actually updated. Said there's some important notes and updates in the death certificate for Celeste. The document now reflects the fact that the LA County medical examiner says she was murdered, and it's now unknown if she'd been pregnant in the year before she was killed. TMZ obtained the new...
My whole thing in a nutshell, if she was murdered, who in the hell could have done it? But David D. Who could have done this besides David? I cannot think of one person who could have done this besides him. Guys, put it in the comments if you know, because some of y'all are still thinking he was framed. Some of y'all are still thinking he was framed, and I'm in disbelief up in this camp.
Certificate, and it no longer says she was not pregnant. Now that section is marked U for unknown. The new certificate says cause of death has been corrected from deferred to multiple penetrating injuries, and the manner of death is updated from pending investigation to homicide. The document was also corrected to say the injury date, hour, place, and location were unknown, with the section stating describe how injury occurred. Events which resulted in injury now says with objects. So this opens the door to the possibility that she was pregnant at the time. Now, I did see some comments on Reddit suggesting that, this can be a bit of a normal thing when it comes to autopsies and death certificates. A lot of women can get marked unknown for pregnancy. That's not a yes, that's not a definite, but it's not a no either. So it's a possibility, according to the death certificate, that she might have been pregnant at the time of her death. Now, interestingly enough, okay, we saw it previously. There was already a little bit of evidence. There was a series of messages.
Okay, we got Mr. Deed and Michael brought up some good points, okay, because they talking about the plan B, okay, and there was a great possibility that Mr. Deed sat up there and said that maybe that she wasn't going to have an abortion. I believe that if little Celeste Rivas Hernandez, if she were pregnant, guys, I don't know, and I'm just going to put the fingers up. If she were pregnant, I don't think she would have got rid of it, okay? If she know what I know, okay, I wouldn't have got rid of it, okay? Well, first of all, I don't believe in abortion, but we ain't gonna get off up in that tangent right now. I don't believe in abortion. But guys, that would have been her freaking meal ticket. Okay, so why in the hell would she sit here and get an abortion? That makes absolutely no sense. That would have been her ticket out of Lake Elsinore. But I don't think she would have got it. Guys, she wouldn't have gotten an abortion because she loved this fool. Believe it or not. She loved him, and she was in disbelief. He was cheating on her. She probably never been cheated on before in her life. Like I said, she had a boyfriend before, David, and he was old little motherfucker. That was Gus. And Gus has since been unalived. I'm not sure if it had anything to do with David or whatever the case may be. Gus is dead. Okay? That's what I said. Gus is dead. I don't know what happened to Gus. But my whole thing in a nutshell, she would be a damn fool to get rid of that baby because that would have been her meal ticket out of the hood.
In David's Discord quite some time ago of somebody discussing a pregnancy, and this kind of did fit in with the timeline of alleged abuse when it came to Celeste. So let me just see if I can get access to this page Rudy here. So it was a deleted user, someone saying, I think I'm pregnant. Oh my. A pregnant Discordian.
And why he talking about the Discord? I said this before. I'll say it again. I already knew that Celeste was about to rat his ass out. Because when she got into David's Discord, guys, I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm going to say it again. God damn it. Okay? When she got in his Discord, she was 10. Okay? She was in there chatting with everybody at 10, 11 chatting with everybody at 11, 12 chatting with everybody, 13 chatting with everybody. And guys, I'm paraphrasing. When she turned 14 years old, she got in the Discord and said, and I'm paraphrasing, I am a minor. I am 14. Boom! When she said that, I knew she was about to rat him out. You were a minor at 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. Now you 14. Now you want to tell everybody you're a minor and you up in the Discord? I already knew that she was going to rat him out, but I did not know he had all this child porn on his damn cell phone. And guys, you remember when they were on that live, her and David D4VD, you remember when they was on that live, little Celeste Rivas Hernandez said something, and I'm paraphrasing to the fact that he liked to grape kids And that's when he said, no, delete that. Because Celeste already knew that he had a fetish for kids, but she, her child herself, she ain't gonna sit up there and tell nobody. She probably thought, oh, this shit is weird, but she probably didn't figure out till later that the shit is illegal like a mofo. I already knew that. She was about to rat his ass out.
He said, why do you think you're pregnant? My belly's getting bigger. Unexpected. They're saying, are you a virgin? He says, it's easier said than done. Sometimes something kicks in my belly. They're saying,
what?
no. When was the last time you had sex? They said 2 months ago. So some people have speculated that this might have been Celeste in the Discord talking about she pregnant. Okay. Someone talking about 14. I thought you was older. That's the part that
correct, Mr.
14,
D.
I thought you was older. Like, a lot of people thinking this is Celeste. Some people have tried to debunk it and suggest it's not. They're saying your birthday, that's a different person. Deleted user 2 months ago. Make sure you're really pregnant or not. If yes, tell the father or parents. So anyway, there's been a few little Discord messages floating around that have seemed to suggest that Celeste may have been pregnant and talking about it in the Discord.
There you go.
There's been quite a few different, discussions of this on Reddit. This was 10 days ago. It says this is when it was announced. The prosecutors have evidence of Celeste being pregnant at some point. And this was from the paperwork. It says recovered texts between David and Celeste contain references to sex, pregnancy, abortion, and the use of Plan B emergency contraceptive, the brief alleges. Burke and Rivas also exchanged illegal photographs documenting corroborating their sexual relationship. Okay. So combine all that with the DNA evidence that was found. It says it's possible that she may have just thought she could be pregnant, but wasn't. And people are saying, I also don't think this is proof that she was actually pregnant, just proof they were discussing the possibility. This says there was evidence that they talked about their pregnancy and abortion. It says
this is sad.
that. See, if you look at the way it's worded, it says numerous text messages between defendant and victim evidencing, and now it goes into a list of things that are evidencing their sexual relationship, pregnancy, abortion, and use of Plan B. The way that's worded would suggest to me they have text messages between them that evidence a pregnancy. That would suggest it happens. Not saying they discussed a possibility, saying evidence of a pregnancy and an abortion. Sounds like that's what happened. So I think that's really, really interesting if you read between the lines and you get into the detail. Okay. It says, I'm going to wait for more evidence before believing she was pregnant at some point. It says jurors will have to ponder this if it goes to trial. Would a conversation in which Celeste says I'm pregnant by text and they discuss abortion,
I'm going to tell you something, guys. Another thing. Besides this damn Uber driver. The Uber driver going to be there. The Uber driver going to be there. Trust and believe. But guys, what happened to all the damn video footage from the damn Tesla? Okay? Because the Tesla got a bunch of damn cameras on it. Okay? That's what's going to be the final nail in this fucking coffin. If that camera, because from what I understand, guys, I ain't got a damn Tesla. Don't know shit about it. Okay? Even though I know when I get in a Tesla, because I've taken an Uber to the airport or whatever the case may be, to me, it's a rocky motherfucking ride. I'm not impressed with it. But there's cameras all over. But from what I understand, you can deactivate the cameras. Now, if he deactivated the cameras, guys, we ain't got shit on that damn Tesla. Okay, but if the cameras were not deactivated, because this motherfucker stuck off stupid. Okay, first of all, why would you ordering the swimming pool and the chainsaw? Okay, and the body bag, and then you order the Uber, and all that can be tracked back to you? Come on now. You acting like you on the slow bus. I'm going to tell you the truth. And guys, I've said this before. David D4VD is only 5'5", 125 pounds. When his little behind get into prison, if he goes, he going to be somebody's girlfriend quick out the gate. He will not be able to survive up in there. And once they find out what the hell he did, and guys, they already know what the hell he did. They waiting for his ass. They already, guys, this is all on social media. It's all on CNN, guys. That's all the motherfuckers do up in prison is lift weights, watch TV, guys, and try to act like they some type of attorneys. That shit be killing me. And the reason why I know, because guess what, guys? I'm a registered nurse, and I used to work up in a jail, and I know what they do. They waiting for David D4VD's ass. He's not going to last 5 hot minutes up in there. Trust and believe.
The actual texts aren't released in the documents be enough to convince you. It's somewhat immaterial as it's not directly about the main charges. However, it would be one of the several strands of evidence that the two were SULE active since she was 13.
I didn't, Mr. D.
People saying, exactly. To be honest, it doesn't matter if she was pregnant or not. The real thing is, did he have an inappropriate relationship with a child? This is just another piece of evidence that screams yes. That aids in the motive for the murder alone. Pregnant or not, his motive would still be he killed her to silence it getting out that he was a PDF. Okay, a file of that sort. It says, well, the court doc says evidencing their sexual relationship, pregnancy, abortion, and Plan B usage. That means at some point, yes, she was pregnant, and with the same pregnancy, I'm sure she had an abortion, which would have had to have been within the first trimester. The medical examiner wouldn't be able to determine if someone was ever pregnant if they didn't go past the first trimester. Also didn't help, she was badly decomposed, which makes it 10 times harder to determine if she ever was pregnant.
My God.
Interesting. Okay, it says this is the evidence. They talked about their sexual relationship. So it's saying if you read between the lines very carefully, it says she was pregnant.
Good night, Michael, and thank you again, sweetheart. I'll see you tomorrow.
It says evidence of their pregnancy, right? It says you're misunderstanding this. It doesn't say Celeste pregnancy. It says pregnancy, which most likely means they were discussing pregnancy and abortion at high level. No, but it says evidencing their pregnancy.
Yeah, Mr. Deed, I saw when Mark the Shark went to the grave and put flowers on there, and I saw when he found that damn Tesla. Because evidently the Tesla, evidently somebody purchased that Tesla. And guys, I don't know how Mark the Shark, God bless him. I love his channel. Go check it out. I don't know how they found that Tesla, but they found the Tesla, and he was video recording around the Tesla. He wouldn't go near the Tesla, but he was close enough. And matter of fact, I used some of his video footage, and God bless him. Good night, Michael. But guys, I don't know how these people find all this information. And I tell you what, guys, even though I'm in Northern California, all this shit happened, of course, in Southern California. I am about to drive way out there and be sitting up there and doing some video footage around the Tesla. I don't have time for that now. If that was right down the street from where I stayed, that would be another story. But guys, this was sad and senseless. He did not have to do this little girl like this, okay? Go ahead and take your licks from all of this shit you got going on with this child porn situation. Now you got this unalive girl on your... This is crazy. You didn't have to do this.
It was text messages that evidenced their pregnancy, not the possibility. I think that's saying she was definitely pregnant, to be honest with you, if you just read between the lines. For example, what they would do if she got pregnant. It doesn't say what they would do. It doesn't say evidencing what they would do if she got pregnant. It says evidencing their pregnancy. Full stop. Evidencing their pregnancy. It says, I made a post due to the decomposition. She could have been in earlier stages of pregnancy, but we will have to see when the pregnancy conversation specifically happened.
That's sad.
And that's exactly that. That's why the medical examiner determined she wasn't pregnant. That's not what happened. But he can't determine for sure if she was ever pregnant. She most likely had an abortion before the first trimester. And with her being decomposed, it makes it harder to figure that out. I'd like to see the text messages before concluding Celeste was pregnant or had a pregnancy scare at some point. This is very vague, and they could have been discussing ways to avoid pregnancy. Medical examiner says she definitely wasn't pregnant within a year of her death. Well, that's not really what was said. If necessary, the DNA might need an expert, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it means she was pregnant, but that they had S and was afraid so they could go get a plan B. She was never...
Yeah, Michael, I'm in the Oakland Hills. I'm in the Oakland Hills, nowhere near L.A. Ain't trying to drive to L.A. I went to L.A. years and years ago. Wasn't impressed. I'm not going to L.A. That's not going to happen.
They said she was never... Bro, it says they evidence pregnancy. Am I bugging? Let me know in the comments if I'm bugging, because I really feel like
no,
if
let
you
me
actually
stop.
Just read the text.
Let me stop.
Straight stone cold sober, just with the facts and the words. Numerous text messages between the defendant and victim evidences their sexual relationship and pregnancy. Evidenced it. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it sounds like she was pregnant. Not based on the autopsy. Autopsy and the medical examiner, they might not be in a position to determine. They've left it unambiguous, but it seems to suggest from the paperwork that there was evidence of a pregnancy happening.
All right, guys. I'm about to get on your ass. Guys, I've been on here an hour. Okay, we got 12 likes up in this camp. Go ahead, guys. Give a sister a like. Okay, it's going to help with the algorithm. I greatly appreciate it. Guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and push that doggone notification button. But guys, it does sound like she might have been pregnant. It does sound like it to me because, like I said, the medical examiner's office has locked all of this shit down because social media, including TMZ, was saying some rumors, this, that, and the third. And the whole thing in a nutshell, guys, you know, TMZ sat up there and said that little Celeste Rivas Hernandez, she was beheaded, she was chopped up into little pieces, she was frozen. And I'm starting to think maybe it was a great possibility that they were telling the truth. Okay, because remember, everybody was saying that TMZ was lying and they was just saying that for views or whatever the case may be. I am starting to think maybe TMZ knew what the hell they was talking about. Okay, but my whole thing in a nutshell, they said after she got out that Uber that David ordered, got to the house, he stabbed her 2 times, once in the liver. Somebody said that David watched her fall to the ground and bleed out. The next day, the mofo had a party. Okay, he had a party. He was blaming the funky smell at the party on him taking a poop in the bathroom. Okay, my whole thing is, who is this person? And guys, if you watch that video, and I just said a little bit ago, if you watch that video, Neo is looking nervous. He's looking nervous. Everybody's laughing about how bad it stinks up in there. But evidently, little Celeste Rivas Hernandez was already unalive in the house. This motherfucker was arrogant. He had a party the next day. He had the party the next day. He was arrogant. He did not believe that he was going to get in trouble. And to tell you the truth, I didn't believe he was going to get in trouble either, because little Celeste Rivas Hernandez was a poor little Hispanic girl from Lake Elsinore. Let's just call the thing a thing. She was a poor little Hispanic girl from Lake Elsinore. Okay? And all of this pushing the court dates back and this, that, and the third, guys, is making me nervous.
Right. People saying Plan B prevents pregnancy. She might have taken it. She might have taken Plan B a different time. She could have got pregnant another time. She says, no, I'm not seeing anywhere about a documented pregnancy. Plan B is a tablet of hormone that you take within 72 hours of unprotected intercourse to prevent a pregnancy. If she had a documented abortion, that is evidence of a previous pregnancy, which could be possible in California at a clinic for a 13-year-old, but it wouldn't be easy. It says, when you're young, it's usually your first concern. I know I was terrified when I was younger because I didn't use protection. I never got pregnant. Talked about it a lot, though, because you're scared and you always have that possibility. I have a feeling it was David's first time being homeschooled and all. So there's more speculation about this possibility, right? It says there's evidence in the court documents. There were text messages talking about sex, pregnancy. It didn't say talking about. It said evidencing. Did this little girl really have an abortion or get pregnant? I'm way beyond disgusted. I mean, I have been... But
look here, Celeste ain't got no abortion if she was pregnant, because that would be a freaking meal ticket. Okay? Allegedly. If she was pregnant, I really don't think she would have gotten an abortion. That would have been a meal ticket for her. That makes no sense to get an abortion. Okay? David D4 VD wasn't arriving. He had already arrived in the music industry. Okay? Now, this wouldn't have looked good on him having a little 13-year-old girl pregnant. No, it wouldn't have. But that would have been her meal ticket. So you cannot tell me that she was sitting up here contemplating that she was going to have an abortion. No, I don't believe that. Guys, put it in the comments and let me know what you think. No, I don't believe she would have done that. That would have been her meal ticket out of the damn hood. And another thing, she loved this little short motherfucker. She loved him. Okay? She was up there crying, and they were texting each other her last day here on Earth. And then he talked her ass into getting in that Uber. And when she got there, he unalived. She was only at the house 20 freaking minutes before he unalived her.
This is too much. It then adds up to the me and deleted user got a kid on the way talk. Absolutely disgusting monster. Lock him up. It's not difficult to get an abortion in California. You do not need parental consent. But yeah, it's mind-boggling that she's just a kid and had to endure that. She grew up way too fast and didn't have a childhood. You can order abortion pills online now. Get them pretty quickly. We don't know. They may have just been discussing options in case. Well, this says evidencing a pregnancy. In case you got pregnant in the future. Also, if it's your first sexual relationship and you struggle to access birth control because of age, it's way more risky and you're likely to speak about it more often. Having a talk about pregnancy doesn't necessarily mean she was pregnant. Yeah, but if the conversation evidences a pregnancy, I'm pretty sure that means you're pregnant. It can mean she had a pregnancy scare and they talked about it. I mean, or there was an...
But the whole thing in a nutshell, David D4BD got on his own Discord and said, me and deleted user. Evidently, this was Celeste's name. Deleted user. This was her profile name, I'm guessing. have a baby on the way. Why would he say that? If she wasn't pregnant, why would he say that? That makes absolutely no sense. Absolutely. He was sort of kind of proud, but then he was thinking, oh shit, I'm about to be in trouble. That's what he was thinking.
Accident. You know what accident? I mean, it's so disgusting to talk about. And they talked about getting Plan B for that. I might jump into a pool of bleach after talking about that. Yeah, you get the gist. What I got from the documents is it was discussed as prevention, not that she actually got. That's not what I got from the documents. I got from the documents that they discussed an actual pregnancy that happened. One thing the documents proved is they were having unprotected S. We don't know if she was genuinely pregnant
it's likely.
or not, but I don't think she was. Page 3 from the 29th of April brief and page 6 word it completely differently. Okay, now we get into some people that are actually paying attention. Page 3 says text exchanges between the victim and defendant contain references to sex, pregnancy, abortion, and use of Plan B. References to, this would mean it was discussed, not necessarily that the pregnancy or abortion took place. Interesting. And then page 6 says numerous text messages evidence their sexual relationship, pregnancy, abortion. Evidencing this would suggest that all 4 of these things actually occurred. The sexual relationship, a pregnancy, abortion, and the use of Plan B. But this is the state's accusation and not evidence, so we'll have to see what this really means. That's the best and most helpful comment that I've seen on this whole thing. Okay? If they're phrasing it differently, we don't know. It could go either way, because if we're only going by this, evidencing suggests that all 4 of these things occurred, and that's the right way of breaking it down.
And see, guys, this is another reason why I know David didn't do this by himself. First of all, the motherfucker ain't smart enough. He is not smart enough. This is gonna call a thing a thing. He's not smart enough to do this on his own. And I've said this in other videos. If you did this on your own, Celeste was a little bitty girl. She was a little late. If you did this on your own, why the hell would you need 2 chainsaws? You don't need 2 chainsaws if you were doing this by yourself. You can only operate 1 chainsaw. 1 chainsaw would have did it. You didn't need 2. That's what made me think that David didn't do this by himself. Now, the private investigator, Steve Fisher, said that 1 chainsaw looked like it had never been used. Matter of fact, Steve Fisher didn't even mention the 2 chainsaws. He said that 1 chainsaw was found in the garage. Okay? The only reason why I thought that was weird is because David D4BD, you were renting that property. You didn't need a damn chainsaw. Okay? If you need a tree cut down, whatever the case may be, you would call the homeowner. Right? You would call the homeowner. So that makes absolutely no sense that a chainsaw would be in the garage. That's what made a light bulb go off in my head. But Steve Fisher never said 2 chainsaws. He said 1. And that 1 chainsaw had never been used. So I am thinking David D4BD needed 2 chainsaws because he was not doing this by himself. Maybe after he got the 2 chainsaws, he probably figured out, shit, she little as hell. I'm just going to have this other person hold her down. And guys, I don't want to get graphic. Why I, chop her up or whatever the case may be. Maybe the other person was just holding her down. Well, guys, it's weird. I ain't never killed nobody before. I don't know what these crazy motherfuckers thinking. But that's what I'm thinking. He bought the 2 chainsaws because there's going to be 2 of them finishing her off.
Okay. I deleted my previous comment because someone pointed out a different part of the report suggests that there were discussions of her being pregnant.
Thank you, Mr. D.
Plan B. However, the medical examiner amended their report to indicate it was unknown whether or not she'd ever been pregnant in the last year. We may learn more about those conversations, but needless to say, this supports charges of a continual criminal sexual activity, right? If people saying, oh, we need to slow our horses, the prosecutors know what they're doing by throwing out the terms, they're making it ambiguous. It's unlikely they got any evidence of them actually saying she got pregnant. It's unlikely she got pregnant. They found evidence of discussions of it. I do think they choose wording intentionally in the case, so documents wouldn't surprise me either. So look, last thing I want to show you, all right, and you guys can let me know what you think, because we've got 2 different bits of paperwork that contradict each other, so we don't know for sure. But apparently, okay, this was a clip that I reacted to quite some time ago. Don't tell me Reddit has changed their video player. This looks like it sucks. So this was some random guy that was doing a Twitch stream with an alleged friend of Celeste, and was apparently told that she'd got pregnant and run away.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So
wait, you went to her house?
Yes, I went to her house, bro. Went to her house. When I went to her house, tell me how, she was like, oh, I might have ran away because my parents are doing too much. And, I might go to David's house. Mind you, I didn't think of the David of the artist David. I thought a nigga from school. So then I was like, okay, just be smart what you're doing. Don't be stupid. And she's like, oh, let me also tell you something else. I was like, what? She told me that she was pregnant. And I was like disappointed, but not disappointed at the same time, because it's also none of my business that she's pregnant. So then she told me that she ran away, and a few months later passed. And mind you, when she told me that she ran away, I kept texting her like every day. She hasn't like responded to my text. A few months later to April, her parents asked me, like, do you know anything about Celeste? I was like, no. She's like, do you know that she's pregnant? I was like, no. They're like, do you know that she ran away? And I was like, no, because she told me not to her parents she was pregnant, or then she ran away.
I'm gonna keep it a bean, bro. I don't think she's lying, bro.
It's on my great grandmother's grave. I'm not lying.
Y'all was close type shit. Like y'all was mad close, or like was y'all just like cool?
Yeah, we was close. We was close.
What's the last time you seen her?
This is weird.
Like, I think she ran away last year, January.
Last year of January?
Yeah, like January 2025.
Oh, so this year, 2025.
Went to her house, right?
So look, that could be taken with a pinch of salt, all right? Some people think she might.
So little Celeste Rivas Hernandez, evidently when she met David, she kept running away from Lake Elsinore to the Hollywood Hills, evidently to be with him. And evidently her parents got hold of one of the manager's email addresses and said, our daughter is missing, bring her back. Okay. The manager sat up there and said they didn't know what the hell that the Hernandez was talking about. They didn't know nothing about Celeste. But by coinky dink, the very next day, she was brought back. I don't know who brought her back, but she came back. Okay, this is weird. And Mr. D brought up a good point. Evidently, the home that David D4 VD was renting out. That's what I'm saying. This guy had arrived. He wasn't arriving. The home that he was renting out, guys, it was a rental property, and evidently it was rented out by his manager. And I believe Mr. D, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the manager was Josh Marshall. Okay? And guys, that's why I'm sort of kind of on the fence with Josh Marshall having anything to do with this, because Josh Marshall said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said that he has a daughter that could have been little Celeste Rivas Hernandez's age. So when he said that, that made me think that he was saying, hey, if I would have known this was going on, I would have pulled his coattail and said, hey, dude, what's going on? Okay, that's the way I am thinking. So I don't really think that Josh Marshall had anything to do with it. I'm not really sure. I could be wrong. But yes, the home was being rented out for $20,000 a month by David D4VD. The home used to be owned by the actress Halle Berry. So this guy had arrived. He wasn't arriving. He had arrived. Okay, Halle Berry doesn't own that property anymore. Because this whole thing to me was unnecessary. How he did this little girl.
I'd be lying, okay? Prosecutors have all their text messages, so if she ever was pregnant, they probably know already. And I think it's possible that we know, right? Some people are saying she's lying. But look, I do personally think, based on that wording, I think Celeste was pregnant at some point, honestly. That's just my opinion. I think she was. I think they probably discussed it. And they clearly... I don't think you would reference Plan B and abortion. Like, I feel like you either do one or the other.
Hey, Justice, I believe his name is Trapmore. I think his name is Trapmore, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, I have been mistaken a time or two. But I think his name is Trapmore. I love his material.
Sounds like maybe a couple situations popped off. Honestly, like, based on the text that I'm reading, I'm thinking she got pregnant.
David Anthony Burke, known by his moniker, his stage name David, is accused of sexually abusing a teen girl 4 months before allegedly luring her to a swanky rental home in the Hollywood Hills, killing her with some sort of sharp instrument, letting her bleed out, and then cutting her up in an inflatable pool in the home's garage. Horrific. But this is all according to investigation by the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division and now the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Now we know David has entered a not guilty plea to the charges that he faces, and that his attorneys, led by Blair Burke, say the evidence will show he didn't cause Celeste Rivas Hernandez's death.
Okay, if he didn't cause the death, who the freak did? Who would benefit by her not being here? Nobody, allegedly, but David D4VD. It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly what that evidence might be, though, still unclear. But again, as he faces these charges, including first-degree murder and their special circumstances allegations, which could make this life in prison without the possibility of parole, maybe even the death penalty, even though there's a moratorium on executions, the stakes are very severe. And today, as we inch closer to a preliminary hearing in David's murder case, I want to do something else. I want to talk a little bit more about what we know about him, his family, his relationship,
Break it down. Break it down.
Celeste, and what's next in this very high-profile criminal case. Because you may or may not have heard of David before Celeste's body was found in the trunk of a Tesla towed to a Hollywood tow yard in September. The singer-songwriter shot to fame in 2022 with a song called Romantic Homicide, which has more than, I think, 1 billion plays on Spotify. His latest album, Withered, landed a top 15 spot on the Billboard 200 when it debuted last year. This is according to The Hollywood Reporter, sandwiching David in between hitmakers like Billie Eilish and Chappell Roan. Guy's a big deal. By the way, important for the legal case, his career. And David also made headlines in the music industry because of his production process. According to an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, most of his songs are recorded on his iPhone using apps like BandLab. But his success quickly pulled him from his Texas bedroom to the international stage. Multiple websites list David's name.
The guy was doing things. He was doing things. Why in the hell would you risk all of that for a little girl out of romper room? Why would you? I don't understand that there was some grown ass women. Now, even though David was only 5'5", 125, he did look like a grown man physically. But in the face, he looked like a grown-ass man. And we already know that there was 5-year age difference between David and little Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Why would you risk all of this for this little girl? And guys, it wasn't just little girl. Evidently, guys, this guy has a fetish for porn. Now, you already know, guys, I can't say the word. He has a fetish for child corn. Not just regular corn, but child corn. That's weird.
Net worth is between $2 and $3 million, which, by the way, we weren't able to independently confirm, but it's safe to say that he has been seeing some serious success. You got to imagine that. And in September of 2025, the media pivoted from talking about his Withered concert tour, which he soon canceled, and instead focused on his alleged involvement in Celeste's death. She should have been celebrating her 15th birthday, but instead,
yes, Justice. I love his channel. Thank you so much. I could screw up her name, as you saw. I appreciate you.
She was found dead, dismembered, some of her body parts still missing, all in the front trunk of a Tesla, reportedly registered out of Texas to David. She had last been seen or heard from months earlier in April. So now David was the focus of serious scrutiny from law enforcement and online sleuths and traditional media, and that scrutiny spread to his family as well. And it turns out that as David was writing and releasing Romantic Homicide, he was also allegedly interacting online with young fans, including Celeste.
Disgusting.
According to a brief that was filed by Los Angeles prosecutors in anticipation of a preliminary hearing, quote, pursuant to their investigation, LAPD robbery homicide detectives determined the victim and defendant met in January 2022 when she was 11 years old.
Jesus.
They began a sexual relationship in November 2023 when the victim was just 13 years old and defendant was 18.
God.
But he wasn't the only one interacting with Celeste. She apparently spent time with his friends, including Neil Langston, who was purportedly one of David's good friends. Investigators say she even traveled to Texas with David to meet his family. The prosecution's brief states, throughout 2024, the victim spent a significant amount of time with defendant, including summer weekends at his home in the Hollywood Hills. And
first of all, can't you get in trouble by having somebody who's a minor and transporting them across state lines? Can't you get in trouble for that? And then from what I understand, guys, she had a passport. Her passport was found in Santa Barbara in the middle of nowhere where David was standing out there. Everybody thought that he was trying to figure out what he was going to do with little Celeste Rivas Hernandez, belongings and finish unaliving her, maybe out there. This is what I thought. Her passport was found out there. Evidently, he had taken her to London. Okay? What is she telling her? See, this is what I'm saying. The parents is confusing the fuck out of me. Okay, what is she telling her parents? I know you can't be telling them I'm going to London. Okay, London ain't down the street. Okay, and tell you the truth, Texas ain't down the street. I'm from Texas. Okay, that Guys, you can't drive that in the car in one damn day and then turn around and come back. What was she telling her parents?
Traveling with him to Las Vegas, London, and Texas to meet his family. Now, it's unclear how much David's parents and brother knew about his interactions with Celeste and if they were aware of how young she was. But we do know that the family was ordered to come to L.A. and testify, seemingly in front of a grand jury, as prosecutors were working to build a case against him. After David's arrest in April, an attorney representing the Burke family released a statement to Rolling Stone saying the parents are sad and disappointed that David was arrested. However, they fully stand behind him and believe that he is innocent. They fully support him. I want to talk about what we've learned about the Burke family over the last year or so, and I'm going to preface this by
how is the family supporting him? Okay, especially the mother. You had to have known the little Celeste Rivas Hernandez was underage when you first met her. When he first started going out with her, about 10 or 11 years old, guys, she didn't have no boobies nowhere to be found. Okay, it looked like a little boy with long hair. That's what she looked like. No boobies nowhere to be found. How in the hell did he bring this little girl to your house and you think that she's 19 years old? Because David was trying to make us believe that she was a freaking college student. How is that possible? She did not look like a freaking college student to me. Okay? And y'all standing behind him, especially the mother, guys. Because the mother was even said, when he wrote that romantic homicide, she said, I don't like it. You remember he's talking about in the back of my mind, he killed her and he didn't even shed a tear. The mother said she did not even like that music. It was weird. And like I've said before, guys, the music was catchy to the motherfucker. But the doggone lyrics was weird. The mother did not like it. I didn't like it either, but I thought the beat was cool. But the whole thing is, how are your music, your lyrics, your videos, your artwork on your CDs, whatever the case may be. And then, guys, he has that video where he's standing there with a bloody shirt on. Okay, he got a bloody shirt on, and he's watching two people pick up what looks to be somebody who's unalive and putting them in the trunk, almost at the front, in the trunk of a car. You did that in your freaking video, and then the same thing happens to you in real life, and we supposed to believe that that's a freaking coincidence? That makes no sense. The same thing happens to your ass with little Celeste Rivas Hernandez, with her being found in the front of your Tesla registered to you, and we supposed to believe it's a coincidence. That don't make no sense.
Saying that David is the only person to have been charged in connection with Celeste's death right now. His family members have not been accused of any wrongdoing. But David's parents are Colleen and DeWood Burke.
Weirdos.
He also has an adult brother, Caleb, as well as a younger sister. This is
Weirdo.
TMZ. And we're going to get into more about Caleb and how he's maybe turning heads right now in just a second. But last fall, when all of the speculation started swirling around about David, the Tesla, a body being found in California, what was going on in Texas? Well, the Burke family home was reportedly the target of swatting. So swatting's a dangerous prank where someone calls 911 and pretends that there's been some sort of incident, so it requires an urgent police response. It's a hoax. And in this case, 2 Waller County deputies responded to that home in Hempstead, which is apparently on a large piece of property set back off the road. But according to Realtor.com, the 4,400 square foot home sits on nearly 7 acres of land. And it all started with a phone call to 911 on September 18th, so just days after Celeste's body was found.
Waller County Sheriff's Office is Amber.
Before we get off into that, I didn't even know what the hell swatting was. I had to look that shit up. I did not know what swatting was, to tell you the truth, because I had never done no crazy shit like this when I was a teenager. This is weird. I did not know what the hell swatting was.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, Waller County Sheriff's Office.
Hello, I need help.
Okay, what's going on? Where are you at?
My address is...
Okay, what's going on?
I heard, some, gunshots.
Okay. How close to your residence were they?
They were, right outside my house, and I think someone's dead.
Okay, what's your name?
Say it again?
What's your name? Okay, what's a good phone number for you, sir? Okay, and why do you believe that somebody's dead?
I just heard, a loud scream, and there was, gunshots.
Oh, scream. Okay. After shots.
Yeah, Justice, I'm in the same boat as you. I didn't know what the hell it was. The police ain't got time for this bullshit. That is weird. You should be in trouble for doing some shit like this. This is weird.
Okay, but you haven't saw or heard anything else after that?
I heard a scream.
Was it a male or a female scream, do you think?
It was like a female.
Female? Okay, we're going to go ahead and get deputies headed out that way and just confirming you're at...
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to get them sent that way, okay?
Okay.
Justice, I'm not sure of the date that this happened. I'm not really sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
So someone's alleging that there's someone dead at this home, doesn't want to provide much detail. We spoke with an audio expert, by the way, for an episode of Sidebar when this first came out, and she said the voice was distorted and it's likely someone trying to mask it. Now, one of the responding deputies called into the sheriff's office to get more information from the dispatcher as he approached this property.
How far is the other guy out?
Your ass should be in trouble for doing this.
Show me plan on me, Martin.
He is turning right now onto 359, so he's probably like 5-6 minutes if he's booking it. Yeah, this house is far. Be careful. Wait on him, Chris.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, whenever he told me, he was like, hey, I just heard gunshots and someone's dead. And I was like, wait, what do you mean somebody's dead? Like, how do you know that? Do you see them? And he's like, no, he's like, I heard a lady scream right after the gunshots. And I was like, okay, so have you seen anybody? Have you heard anything? Have you heard any more gunshots? He's like, no. And I was like, okay, well,
this is weird.
My name? And I was like, yeah, what's your name? But behind it, to the side of it, grass. So y'all just be careful.
Yeah,
he's almost he's on Porter Lane right now already.
Right,
so he's moving.
Yeah, I'm gonna move up a little ways and we'll ride in.
Okay, we're gonna close it when y'all get there, just to make sure.
All right, let me grab my Yeah, because this ain't right. I remember one time coming out here when I first started, and we had a.
You know what, guys? David D. he didn't grow up poor. His parents both had good jobs. As you can hear, guys, well, I'm sure maybe later David helped buy that house. I'm not really sure. But he did not grow up poor. The parents live on 7 acres of land. Okay? That's big, motherfucker. That's big. Okay? You were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You should have known better to do this shit. Your parents are educated. I think the mother is a school teacher and the father works for an attorney's office. Okay? You should have known better. Okay? Your parents should have pulled you to the coat by your coattail and say, sir, you can't be dating nobody young. Okay? Matter of fact, when you got money like this, guys, the average black mama gonna be screening your girlfriends. You best believe that. Okay? Because if my brother had some money and my brother would have bought over some little girl that looked like little Celeste Fernandez, my mama said, what the hell is this, son? What is this? She don't look like she's 19. The average black mama gonna pull that son to the side and get his ass right. This is weird. It did not have to happen. We're not dealing with no dumb people. It did not have to happen to this young girl like this.
Crazy dude back here now, or it was like when I was on FTO.
Yeah, and I looked at the prior scene because he kind of gave me that vibe. But yeah, it's a very long driveway that loops around to his big old house.
Okay, Justice, I thought you was asking me something else. Yes. She was last seen on April the 23rd, 2025 after she got out of that Uber. I thought you was asking me when this video happened with them squatting with the parents. I'm not really sure. I'm thinking that this happened shortly after little Celeste Hernandez's unalive body was found in the trunk of a Tesla, September the 8th, 2025. That's when I'm thinking that this happened with this video.
So, I mean, there's no, houses close to him. That's why his property is huge.
Yeah.
That's why when he said that...
7 acres.
All right, let me let him know. I'm getting about to pull up beside me. I'm going to let him know.
Okay, fine.
So the deputies, one of whom, by the way, is armed with a high-powered rifle, walked up to the Burke's front door.
Go ahead. I got you covered. Come right here. There's too many windows. Here, knock on the door. Dude, we got a phone call from here saying that somebody was dead. What? Is there somebody else that lives on this property that has your address? What's your address? No. That's it.
That's it. That's what I actually got.
We got an address. There was a gunshot and a woman scream.
What?
I'm serious. That's why we came up here like this, because and then they talked to the caller. Whoever they were talking to said that there's a person dead. No, sir.
David's mom.
Justice, what are you talking about? Justice, what are you talking about, girl? I don't know what you're talking about.
Colleen, apparently fearful that the deputies might not be who they say they are, called 911 to verify what's going on.
Sorry to bother you, but somebody called and said there was something. I mean, there was a person that where they called on themselves. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, there's somebody dead.
Someone's dead.
That's what we have. I mean, we're gonna take caution. You know what I mean?
Police ain't got time for these kind of games.
I'm trying to scare y'all. Just.
I guess that's the mama at the front door.
This house is way off the roadway.
Ooh, that's loud.
So you just opened the gate and came in?
Yes, ma'am. I'll put it back. I have a gate just like it.
I think it's probably my country.
Yeah, when it's something like this, when they say somebody's dead, their life matters more than, you know what I mean?
I hear.
Yeah, the dispatcher read the phone number of the person who called 911 to Colleen.
All right, Justice.
Typed it into her phone, and it didn't show up in her contacts.
It ain't on their phone.
And this is not a Texas.
Yeah, that's an out-of-state number.
Someone's messing with us.
But whoever it would be pinged here though, because wherever they call from, it pings and sends it to dispatch.
What the what?
So like whenever you call 911, wherever you are, it sends like a ping to that's how they know the address.
And this address came up to this number?
Yes, ma'am, that's where he was meeting. Engine 42.
So it says somebody on my property?
It could be. We'll check the property for you.
So there's this police report that was apparently reviewed by TMZ that says the deputies were on the property for another 20 minutes or so before they closed out the call, determining that it was likely swatting. And TMZ also later reported that David had transferred deeds of 2 Texas homes to a...
There you go. So this had to have happened. This video with the swatting had to have happened after Celeste's body was found unalive in the front of David D. Porvidi's Tesla. Guys, you got my contact information. You got my Venmo. You got my Cash App. Please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it to push that doggone notification button for future videos.
Trust in his mother's name. That reportedly happened on September 18th and September 20th. Why? Remember, September 18th was the day of that swatting call. It's not clear why the singer decided to do the transfer, but there was speculation at the time that if he did end up getting arrested in connection with Celeste's death, he didn't want authorities to be able to seize his assets. It's also interesting to note that between September, when he canceled his Wither tour, and April, when he was arrested, we don't know where David was. We didn't know where he was. He went silent on social media.
That's sad.
Didn't make any public appearances, as far as we know. He was arrested in California. Is it possible that he was lying low at one of those Texas homes during these months? We know he was arrested at this property in California. How long was he there? And another interesting connection, we actually learned for the first time that David was a, quote, target of a murder investigation because of court documents that were filed by David's family. What do I mean? In February, what's called a petition of attendance was filed, and essentially was trying to compel Colleen, DeWood, and Caleb to appear before a Los Angeles grand jury. And here's an example of what that paperwork said. Quote, that if DeWood Burke comes into the state of California in obedience to a summons directing him to attend and testify at said grand jury investigation, the laws of the state of California and of any other state through which he may be required to pass by the ordinary course of travel to attend such proceeding, shall give him protection from arrest and the service of process, civil or criminal, in connection with matters which arose before his entrance into said state pursuant to such summons. That DeWood Burke is an adult, that the prosecution will provide the witness a round-trip airplane ticket and transportation to and from the airport. Wherefore, it is requested for and on behalf of the state of California that your honor certify to the above and foregoing by the issuance.
Well, we already know that the parents did not appear. From what I understand, the parents did not appear. Okay, and I had made the mistake in saying that David D. Porvidi's father was an attorney, but he is not an attorney. He works for an attorney's office. Evidently, they got out of that. And right now, Caleb, or however y'all saying it, Caleb, whatever his name is, his little brother, evidently he done started his own damn music career, which I thought was inappropriate as hell. He is saying that he did not have a close relationship with his brother D4VD. Guys, we've seen him at his brother's concerts. We actually seen him a couple of times in some music, I don't know, studio, singing songs with his brother. So now all of a sudden, you come out with your own record or album, whatever the case may be, and all of a sudden you and your brother ain't close no more? That is weird. And then you got on social media and you sat up here. You didn't say shit about your brother, but you sat up there. The only thing you said about your brother is that you guys aren't close. That's what you said. Okay? But then you get up here and you are saying, I hope Celeste gets justice. That is weird to me. To me, this is not the time for you coming out with no damn record.
Of a certificate there, too, under the seal of the Superior Court of Record in the state of California to compel the attendance of DeWood Burke as a witness at the grand jury investigation on the date and time set forth and pursuant to law. So clearly they wanted him, right? And we had a chance to dig into that court paperwork, and attorneys for the Burkes filed a writ of habeas corpus arguing that the order compelling them to go to California was illegal, that it was unlawful.
There you
because
go.
they didn't get fully unredacted
Daddy
copies
is
of
smart.
the documents that were
Daddy
accompanying
smart.
the request, so they didn't have the full information. They didn't have notice. Now, a judge considered those arguments, but ultimately denied the writ. But as part of those proceedings, there were some documents that were unsealed, and it gave us a look at where this investigation stood at that point. Again, this is before David's arrest. In those documents, David was referred to, and this was a big shocker, as a target of a murder investigation. Quote, it is alleged in this case that the target may be involved in the death of 14-year-old victim Celeste Rivas Hernandez, who may have been a victim of foul play. Her severely decomposed, dismembered body was found in the front trunk of Target's Tesla on September 8th, 2025. On September 8th, 2025, at approximately 10:30 hours, Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD detectives, received a phone call from the manager of Hollywood Area Official Police Garage. The manager stated a black Tesla Model X had been impounded as an abandoned vehicle by the Department of Transportation on September 5th, 2025. The manager told police there was a strong smell of decay coming from the vehicle, which was attracting flies. LAPD detectives responded to the Hollywood tow yard to investigate. Detectives approached the vehicle, which was parked on the upper deck of the impound lot, and immediately noticed the smell of decaying biological material.
See, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, guys. Celeste Rivas Hernandez, her body had to have been already in the trunk of the Tesla before it made it to the tow yard. Those of you sitting around here thinking, oh, it's a great possibility he might have been framed. How is that possible? Is somebody going to bring an unalived body in 2 body bags to a damn tow yard and put that unalived body with the 2 bags? One was a cadaver bag, one was a trash bag, in the front of that Tesla? Okay? That was your friend. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was your friend. You cannot bring no unalive body to a doggone tow yard and throw it into the front of the Tesla. That makes absolutely no sense. Her body had to already have been in the front of that Tesla before it left your mansion. Now, David D4BD sat up there. He sat up there and told us that the car was stolen. That's what he told us at first when her unalive body was found. Okay? And then he switched it up and said that the car was sold. Okay, but you forgot to transfer the title. That's what you sat up there and said. And then the car was being driven around right outside of the mansion to different locations. I don't know if they got the street sweepers or whatever the case may be. Okay, and then you left it right out there, right outside your mansion, and you jumped your ass on the tour bus. Okay, now Steve Fisher is telling us that for sure, because at first everybody think it was Neo. Because Steve Fisher said that whoever jumped their ass on that tour bus was wearing very distinctive clothing. Okay? And when you talk about distinctive clothing, guys, I come from a different generation. Okay, so distinctive clothing to me are people like David D4BD. He wears some distinctive clothing. His little brother, Caleb, or Caleb, however you say his name, he wears some distinctive clothing. Neo wore some distinctive clothing. And then that one manager that he has, Robert Morgenroth, even though he showed up with a suit and tie for the grand jury, he wore some very distinctive clothing too. So those were the people in the back of my mind who could have drove that Tesla. And now Steve Fisher has told us that it was actually David D4BD. And before they got out of that car, evidently they put like one of those fresheners, those air fresheners on the rearview mirror, thinking that was going to keep down the stench. And evidently this was David's whole plan, to leave the car out there so she could be decomposing. I guess when he comes back on tour, he was going to do whatever the hell he was going to do with her. To me, that was the craziest plan ever. Because you out there with a bunch of rich people. You can't leave no car catching a bunch of dust buddies, a bunch of tickets. I think the car had 17 tickets on it. It started to be an eyesore. It already had a dent on it. Okay, and it got towed. Guys, you cannot bring no dead body to no tow yard. They got cameras up the yin-yang up in there. Okay, that makes no sense that this guy was framed. And then the only finger that had David on it, the only thing, because the other finger had the only finger that had David on it was cut off. So if somebody was trying to frame him, they would have left that finger there, right? They would have left it there so the police could hurry up and put it back on David. But that's not what happened. He cut off, allegedly, David cut off the finger that had his name on it. And it's sad because his mother was on, not his mother, her mother. Let me rewind. Her mother was able to identify her baby. She was badly decomposed from the finger that had on it because David D4BD and Celeste Rivas Hernandez both had matching tattoos that had on it. This is sad.
Consistent with a decomposing corpse coming from the front storage compartment of the vehicle. Detectives obtained a search warrant for the vehicle, and when the front storage compartment was open, detectives observed a black cadaver bag covered with insects and a strong odor of decay. Utilizing black latex gloves, detectives partially unzipped the bag and observed a decomposed head and torso. Investigators and criminalists from the Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner responded to the tow yard to process the decomposed body. Upon removing the cadaver bag from the front storage compartment, it was discovered the arms and legs had been severed from the body. A second black bag was discovered underneath the cadaver bag. Upon opening the second bag, the dismembered body parts were discovered. Detectives were advised that on August 26, 2025, a citizen reported the above-mentioned Tesla as an abandoned vehicle parked across from 1405 Bluebird Street. On August 27, 2025, Department of Transportation officers responded to Bluebird and marked the vehicle. On September 3, 2025, Department of Transportation returned to the vehicle and issued a citation. On September 5, 2025,
slow it down now, slow it down.
Impounded the vehicle to Hollywood Area Tow. It was noted that the Tesla was registered to target David Anthony Burke in Hempstead, Texas. David, who is a singer and performing artist, was on tour at the time his vehicle was impounded. And then the next section is different for each witness, but it says detectives learn that Caleb Burke is the younger brother of target David Burke and has a close relationship with him. Detectives learn that Colleen Burke is the mother of target David Burke and has a close relationship with him. Per several witnesses, she is instrumental to his career success and manages his business finances. Detectives learn that DeWood Burke is the father of target David Burke and has a close relationship with him. So you also wonder if they were going to be compelled to testify about maybe the relationship or the alleged relationship with Celeste. And then there's a large chunk of text that's redacted, but from there we have this application for writ of habeas corpus, and the basic argument here, again, is that under Texas law, a court can only force a resident to testify in another state if there's been a meaningful hearing. They need to understand what it's all about before being forced to go somewhere or being confined in some way. And as I mentioned, that writ of habeas corpus was denied by the court. But to get back to the point, 2 hearings were held. And at the first one, on January 23rd, Colleen and Caleb were in attendance, as well as 2 LAPD homicide detectives who could testify if they needed to. Now, we don't know why DeWood wasn't present, but Mia Magnus represented Texas as well as California, basically by proxy. And she argued that the determination about materiality of these witnesses, like their importance, why they're valued, was already made by a California judge. All the Texas judge needed to do was make sure that the paperwork was all in order and to tell the witnesses they needed to go. Now, the judge said, actually, since this was so last minute, he didn't have any of the paperwork. So they decided to reschedule the hearing for several days later. At the February 2nd hearing in Texas, Colleen, Caleb, and DeWood were all there with counsel. Bennett Dodson, assistant DEA for Waller County in Texas, told the court, "I don't think it's a secret to anyone at this point that Mr. David Burke is a musician who's quite famous, and this matter concerns a car that was registered to him at these witnesses' address here in Houston that had a dismembered, decomposing body in it. I would say if a car with a dismembered, decomposing body is registered to your..."
The whole thing that really turns my stomach, the whole thing that turns my stomach is that David D4BD used to pick up little Celeste Rivas Hernandez, used to pick her up in that very same Tesla that her unalive body was found in. That is creepy. He used to go to Lake Elsinore, not pick her up directly from her home, I think blocks away. Used to pick her up in that very same Tesla. That really turns my stomach.
Home address, that is something you should expect to be questioned by the authorities about, and that's what this is, Judge. Well, the attorneys for David's family members argued that everyone involved in both California and Texas courts, so the judges, the prosecutors, they had seen the unredacted affidavit, but their clients only got the redacted version. And they want to know what's in that big blacked out section of the petitions. Again,
what is it?
The legal argument, hey, we have a right to know what this is about under habeas before relinquishing our freedom in a way. Now, ADA Dodson claimed that most of that information in the affidavit is already known to the public, saying, quote, it's all over TMZ, goes on to say the redacted information concerns knowledge that is only known to the grand jury, period. It has not been distributed anywhere. And then the judge's decision. But even when I look at it myself, I still think these witnesses are material and necessary because of the relationship that's involved with the witnesses and the defendant. So my ruling is going to be that they are to go to California and honor the subpoena by California.
Boom.
And while the judge ordered the Burks to go to LA, appear before seemingly this grand jury, it is unclear when that happened and what they had to say, apparently, in those secret hearings. However, as I mentioned earlier, the family has come out in support of David. They say they believe he's innocent. And
I don't know how.
This is a new update, and it's a bit of a strange twist, to say the least. But as David is languishing behind bars right now, as he's awaiting his preliminary hearing in his trial, and again, he's innocent.
Let's just imagine that David D4BD is your son. He's coming out with these weird lyrics. He's coming out with these weird-ass videos. And then the same thing happens to him in real life, what happens in his videos, what happens in his lyrics. And you gonna still stand behind him. And I understand standing behind him because that's your child. But believing him. I couldn't believe him. There's no way in hell. There is no way in hell I could believe him.
So proven guilty. His brother Caleb is making the news.
There you go.
Because Caleb has apparently taken this opportunity to launch his own music career.
Weird.
Yeah, so according to a report from TMZ, Caleb has used several stage names, including a version of his name where a V replaces the A. And his more recent monikers are Karakova or just Kova. And earlier this week, Kova released a couple of singles on major streaming platforms like Apple Music and Spotify. By the way, the platform that helped launch David to superstardom. And the two singles are called Sex and Imaginary Love. Now, of course,
oh my God.
To release.
Okay, you don't need to be bringing out no damn songs talking about some sex. Okay, after what your brother done did, you need to stay low. You need to be flying under the freaking radar, in my opinion.
Music right now is getting a lot of backlash, with some online calling this move tone deaf, demonic. This is according to the Mirror. But Caleb attempted to silence the critics through a lengthy Instagram story on Thursday, appearing to distance himself from his brother, from David, dispel rumors that he helped his brother somehow cover up the alleged murder. Again, there's been no allegations of that. There's been no definitive proof of that. And Caleb also addressed a video of him circulating online, interacting with Celeste backstage.
This ain't the time, Caleb.
Caleb's post says the following, quote, I've been wanting to say something for a while, but I have to be careful about what I say as this is an ongoing legal matter. I don't want to make this horrible situation about me. I want justice for Celeste and her family. I've seen people say that I knew what was going on.
You knew it.
Protecting my brother. This is not true at all. I have not lived with my brother for years and was not very close with him. We didn't speak often other than when our family was brought before or he was visiting home. I was around Celeste a few times when I was 15. I did not know her well and did not know her age.
Come on now.
Posting a video showing me backstage with her at one of David's concerts when I was 15. And I've been wanting to address it for a while. People have even gone as far as to say that I was sneaking her backstage, which is not true.
You was.
She was already at the show, and the video takes place after the show had already ended. In the video, we were sent to grab something from a fan that was in front of the stage.
Guys, are you believing this? I don't believe it. He's a big liar, just like his brother is, allegedly. Guys, make sure you go ahead, like, comment, share, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. My contact information is right down here. And push that doggone notification button. Guys, I do not believe Caleb. It is weird.
And we were walking back. News companies such as TMZ, Daily Mail, and others have started saying that I am taking advantage of the whole situation to promote my music and that I am just now launching my music career. This is not true at all. I have been releasing and posting music over the last 3 to 4 years and took over a half-year hiatus due to what happened. I changed my name online from Kleb to Kova as I did not want to associate myself with any of this. I have not once mentioned the situation or my identity on the new accounts. TMZ even reported my age incorrectly, saying that I'm 20 when I just turned 18 in November. I had scheduled my first release under the new name before any of this became a headline again, and the song came out 2 days before the arrest.
Stop lying.
This project, music, videos, and songs, was already in motion long before any news coverage around my brother surfaced. My intent has never been to use this to bring attention to myself or my music. This is the whole reason why I started over from scratch. My decision to continue releasing music is not about using any of this for attention. Music is my life, and after stepping away...
Caleb, come on now. Nobody believes this shit but you.
...for months because of everything that's happened, I want to build my own path. Now, it's possible that we'll find out more details about possible family ties and connections between David and the Burks and Celeste at a preliminary hearing later this month, because the preliminary hearing, which is when the court will hear some of the evidence that prosecutors have against David, determine whether or not the case should move forward to trial. Is there enough probable cause to support the charges? And that was originally scheduled, by the way, within just a few days of David's arrest, but the defense said they have terabytes of discovery to sort through. They're not ready yet, so the preliminary hearing is set for the end of May.
Not ready.
So we'll, of course, continue to follow this case closely, bring you any updates as they come out. And of course, if we hear any more connections to David's family, we'll talk about it.
Guys, this is crazy. This is really crazy. I'm not sure what's going on, but this is crazy.
Back to live now from Fox. My name is Alexandra Goldberg. Good to be with you on this Friday night. We now head out to California's Central Coast on an update to a decades-long case.
This is sad.
Investigators in California's Central Coast found evidence of possible human remains at a home connected to the man convicted of killing Kristen Smart. Kristen Smart was only 19 years old when Paul Flores killed her during an attempted rape at his Cal Poly San Luis Obispo dorm room. Kristen Smart first went missing in May of 1996. Flores, now 49 years old, was convicted of murdering Smart and received a 25-year-to-life sentence following his trial in October of 2022. Investigators to this day are still searching for Smart's body. The San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Office said investigators executed a search warrant on Wednesday at the home of Susan Flores, who was the mother of the convicted killer, Paul Flores. San Luis Obispo Sheriff said today that investigators believe human remains were at the residence at one point and could still be there. They confirm Smart's remains have not been recovered. Joining me now from San Luis Obispo
is so sad.
Chloe Schrager with the San Luis Obispo.
It seems like we got like a lot of mothers covering up for their crazy ass sons. Allegedly. Okay? Allegedly. This girl has been missing forever, and now they are digging in the backyard of his mother's home for possible remains. So that is telling me that there's a great possibility that the mother might have known what happened to little Kristen Smart. That's weird.
Tribune. Hey, Chloe, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Chloe, you've been on the ground in San Luis Obispo as this has been unfolding throughout the week. Take us to the house where that search warrant was executed. What did you observe? Who did you see?
Yeah, me and my coworkers have been boots on the ground at the house in Arroyo Grande all week since Wednesday morning. Mostly, we've seen a lot of going in and out of the backyard. There's sheriff's deputies on scene, and there's also a team of soil scientists who are conducting what is called vapor intrusion testing. Really, what they're doing is testing the soil in different areas for evidence of human remains. And we know from today's press conference, the sheriff of San Luis Obispo County told me they have been getting positive results. So we've been seeing them do the soil tests. They've also been doing ground penetrating radar. And just today, we saw shovels being taken from a county vehicle into the backyard. We're not sure if they are digging or not, but that's what we've seen so far.
You bring up the soil testing there. That leads me to my next question. Do we know specifically what evidence investigators are pointing to that remains could be located in the home? Is it that soil testing that is the key?
There are a lot of different factors, is what sheriff deputies have told us so far and what the sheriff has said. The soil sampling is definitely a huge factor. It can't be conclusive evidence, is what the sheriff said today, especially because they don't have the DNA testing to prove that it could be Kristen's body specifically. But if there is evidence of human remains, that obviously gives a huge evidence to do further testing and potentially excavation.
And we do know that Susan Flores' house has been searched before throughout the investigation. What are you reporting about why investigators are going back now?
The sheriff's department hasn't fully clarified exactly what led to the current search warrant, but they did say today that there was a non-eyewitness account that provided new information, as well as advancements in the soil science that allowed them to come back and take more samples and conduct more studies.
Let's find her.
The times this house has been searched before was in 2000, and that was the outside of the property, similar to what they're doing now, although this is the first time the soil in Susan's backyard has ever been tested directly.
Have you heard anything from the Smart family about this development? Of course, so important for the family to be able to lay their daughter to rest. Have you heard anything from the family themselves as this news has developed over the past week?
Thank you, The Real Danny. I greatly appreciate you for getting on here and participating.
Yes, the Smart family released a statement, and, I think similar to the rest of the community, so strongly for them, they're just hopeful that this investigation and this current search will finally put everything to rest. And they will finally be able to bring their daughter home. For the case of Kristen Smart, this is such an emotional story across all of SLO County. It really just breathes through the identity of this location, and the whole community is just really hopeful that they find some evidence and they find a body.
You bring up a good point. This has been a case that has been going on for 30 years. It
Sad.
is this dark cloud that hangs over San Luis Obispo since 1996. You mentioned it briefly there, but how is the greater community reacting to this potential breakthrough?
I think it's been huge. First off, no one really saw it coming. The search this week, it was a total surprise, and people have really been pouring out their.
Can you imagine your child doing something like this? Evidently, she was raped by another person. They were away at college, and he was the last person to see her. She has not been seen in 30 years, and your child, evidently, everybody is saying there's a great possibility your child might have been involved with her unaliving and raping. And now they are at your house digging to see if they can find her remains. They had been there before. Evidently, they didn't come up with nothing. But all of a sudden, guys, this has come to the forefront. Now they are digging again. And I pray that we get some justice for Kristen Smart.
There's onlookers who are driving by, stopping on the streets just to watch. I've been out there with other reporters, and many community members are coming by. So I think everyone's very just maybe excited and interested and hopeful.
And I was reading today that Paul Flores' attorneys maintained the fact that he doesn't know where Kristen's body is.
Yeah, right.
Have you been able to
Allegedly
reach them since this search warrant was executed? Are they still maintaining that position?
I've not been able to reach any of the Flores family's lawyers. We've reached out multiple times, but haven't heard anything back. I did interact with Susan Flores as of yesterday. She was at Ruben Flores' home, but she declined to comment.
Good on the ground reporting there. Of course, you are continuing to follow this. Clay, I wanted to ask you, what questions do you still have about the search? What are you still trying to work through as you continue reporting on this?
Right. It's hard because the sheriff's office can only release so much information, and they don't want to interrupt their own investigation. But we're really still wondering, what is the information that led to this new warrant? if there will be subsequent warrants to start excavating the backyard. The sheriff's office has been very clear that they will overturn every rock and they will not stop until they've exhausted their search this time.
Exactly.
And I think we are all just anxious to see what comes of that and if any charges will be brought back against any of the members of the Flores family.
Yeah, you're right. Investigators often remain tight-lipped in these situations for good reason. It's an ongoing investigation. Chloe Schrager, we thank you so much for your on-the-ground reporting with the San Luis Obispo Tribune. And
May 25th, 1996, Kristen.
So, guys, we're going to do a recap of the case. Those of you who are not familiar with it, okay, this young girl has been missing for 30 years. 30 freaking years. We're going to do a recap, guys.
Smart leaves a party with Paul Flores and 2 other students. Paul and Kristen end up splitting away from the other 2 to walk back towards their dorm rooms. This party was just off campus. Paul would tell investigators that he walked her as far as his dorm room and then let her go alone.
That don't make no sense.
Drinking that night. On May 28th, 2 days later, a missing person report is filed for Kristen with campus police. In June of 1996, the San Luis Obispo County District Attorney's Office interviews Paul Flores. The following year, the Smart family files a wrongful death lawsuit against Paul Flores. He cites the Fifth Amendment during the deposition. In May of 2002, Kristen Smart is declared legally dead. In September of 2016, law enforcement officials dig up 3 locations on a hillside where Kristen was last seen alive, but only animal remains were found. In March of 2021, cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar are used to search Ruben Flores' property. And then in April the next month, 25 years after Kristen disappeared, Paul and Ruben Flores
She's been gone 30 years.
In May of 1996, 19-year-old Cal Poly freshman Kristen Smart attended a party. After walking home alone, she was never seen from or heard from again. The Sheriff's Department, police, even the FBI took part in the search for Kristen, but it never ended. She was presumed dead in 2002. Now, 26 years later, the last person to see Kristen alive, a fellow student, Paul Flores, and his father have been criminally charged in her death and disappearance. Tonight, we break down what we know about what happened to Kristen and look ahead to the trial of her accused killer. Good evening and welcome to Closing Arguments. I'm Ted Rollins in for Vinny tonight. On Monday, the trial of Paul Flores and his father Ruben Flores is set to begin in Monterey County, California. Paul, who has been a prime suspect in the death and disappearance of Kristen Smart, has been charged with her murder. His father, 81-year-old Ruben Flores, has also been charged. He has been charged with being an accessory after the fact. This is a case that people have been following around the country for decades, and we're going to spend the next hour diving into it. But let's start with Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter. She has a look at how we got here.
Kristen Smart was a 19-year-old college freshman at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo when she vanished in May of 1996. She was last seen leaving a party with 2 other students. Kristen's disappearance has remained a mystery. Search warrants were executed in February of 2020, 24 years after she went missing. Police searched the home of Paul Flores, one of the students Kristen was last seen with. Also searched were his parents' home in Arroyo Grande, California, and property in Washington State. Then police went back to look at Flores' home again. The searches appeared to be the break the Smart family had been waiting decades for.
After years of calling Paul Flores a prime suspect, police finally arrested him for murder. His father, Ruben, arrested as an accessory to murder.
Paul and Ruben Flores were arrested after investigators found biological evidence under Ruben's deck behind his home. According to the AP, there were traces of human blood and stains in the soil. The Smart family filed a lawsuit last April against Ruben Flores for severe emotional distress spanning nearly 25 years. It alleges Ruben relocated Smart's remains with the help of Paul's mother, Susan Flores, and her boyfriend, Mike McConville.
Y'all doing too much for these damn kids. Y'all do. If he did do this, you mean to tell me the parents relocated her remains somewhere else? This is sick.
Despite all of this, Smart's body has yet to be found.
Oh my God.
Wow, they're outside. There's the caution tape over there. And I'm like, this is real. There's, you know, I see police, undercovers, and I see you guys.
I just pray for the Smart family, and I pray that they
Senseless.
get the finality to this.
Kristen was pronounced legally dead in 2002. But this billboard with Kristen's face has remained a fixture on the California Central Coast since her disappearance, serving as a daily reminder of unserved justice.
The distance between the last place she was seen alive and the door to her dorm building at Muir Hall is just about 40 yards.
That's the voice of Chris Lambert on his podcast, In Your Own Backyard. It's a deep dive into Kristen's disappearance. The podcast's renewed interest in the case and put pressure on authorities to solve it.
On the walk back to her dorm, I think that Paul Flores took her instead to either his dorm or another location, attempted to sexually assault her, and I think that she lost her life in the process.
Paul Flores, the defendant in Smart versus Flores, San Luis Obispo Superior Court case.
Paul Flores has been the main suspect from the beginning, and he maintains his innocence. For years, the Smart family was frustrated with the local sheriff's department, but since a new county sheriff took over, things changed.
We will continue to focus on finding her remains, regardless of any court action.
Good.
So we will continue the process of finding out where Kristen is. When I took office, one of the first acts that I mentioned was re-examining, starting from the beginning.
Besides the podcast, there was also an army of Facebook supporters keeping Kristen's story alive.
I think the best thing that we can do for Kristen and her family right now is what Kristen supporters like doing the very least, but have gotten really, really good at, is just being patient and waiting.
And that patience paying off now, 26 years after Kristen Smart went missing on Monday. We are expecting opening statements to take place in Monterey County, California. The trial's been moved out of the San Luis Obispo area down to Monterey because of the amount of not only publicity over the years, but just how this case has been ingrained in the people that live in the Central Coast. They know Kristen Smart, they know the story, and for that reason, the judge moved the case down to Monterey County. Joining us now is a person that knows this case as well as anybody. He's in San Luis Obispo, California. Anchor Richard Gearhart, and he is with our great affiliate KSBY, and that station, of course, has been covering it since Kristen first went missing. Richard, thanks for joining us, and we really appreciate your time here. I want to start with just...
Thank you, Justice. I thought you was gone. Anyway, yeah, I totally agree. I think he had something to do with the unaliving of Kristen. This is crazy. This is crazy. You mean to tell me you were the last person to see her? Y'all left some, I don't know, event. Both of y'all tipsy. Evidently, she was a little more tipsy than you, and you claiming you just went back to your dorm and let her walk back by herself. That don't make no sense.
Give people a sense of how the Central Coast and Kristen Smart have been on this 26-year journey together.
You know, I think that's one of the interesting parts about this case, right? And we just heard that story. We saw changes kind of through time, right? We get a new sheriff and he renews interest in it. We've had a couple of students kind of reinvigorate the case at Cal Poly and through student media. And then we get the podcast, which was one of the big main changes. And you also heard how those billboards have been up around town. So, you know, I was working at this station in 1996 when she went missing. I have been working here and covering the story for the entire 26-year span. And there has never really been a time, I mean, certainly there has been, you know, interest has waned a bit and then come back. There's never been one person who's really spearheaded this kind of interest. It's always just been on the community's mind. And I think it's been on the community's mind because especially at the time, especially in 1996, things like that just didn't happen here. And so there's this really big push or this big desire to get this to some sort of resolution.
And Paul Flores has always been the prime suspect. This is the individual who was with her the night that she went missing after leaving a campus party. There have been some pretrial motions leading up to trial. This is an extensive trial. They're expecting it to last weeks. 2 separate juries, one for Dad, one for Paul Flores. Let's go through some of the pretrial rulings that this judge has made. It seemed to be pretty favorable towards the prosecution, starting with the fact that there was a motion to quash a subpoena for the defendant's mother to be a potential witness, Susan Flores. She might be it. She might be part of this proceeding.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That was a motion they actually heard yesterday, and there was a whole series of these final motions that they were going over, making final decisions on before moving forward with opening statements on Monday and Tuesday. But yeah, she was one of the items that the judge was considering was quashing that subpoena. They subpoenaed her as a witness under the idea that, that she might incriminate herself, and that wouldn't be fair to her. But the judge said, no, she can go forward and testify. And so
you got to be a sick mofo to know your child did something like this and you covering up for them. You got to be sick.
It remains to be seen if she actually testifies, but there were a number of decisions like that. There was a request to keep some of that more recent DNA evidence that was discovered under the homes out of evidence. And of course, the big one that was decided today was whether or not that podcaster, Chris Lambert, would be testifying in the trial as well. So yeah, there were a number of decisions today that did, sort of land, I would say, a bit more on the prosecution side.
We've seen podcasters attack stories, unsolved stories with new eyes, fresh eyes. And in this case, Chris Lambert, he lived in the area, drove by the billboard all the time, and then one day said, who is this Kristen Smart? And that was the beginning point. And by the end of it, he really did move the ball, did he not, to reinvigorate the interest and possibly ramp up some pressure. And I know the new sheriff made a big difference too here, but talk about how just the new interest, you referred to it earlier with the Cal Poly students and Chris Lambert, how it was a real game changer for the Smart family, because they've been waving their hands for 26 years, and all of a sudden, this next generation of kids took the ball and ran with it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of interesting about this case too, to be honest with you. Kristen Smart, the Smart family, is from Stockton, California. That's several hours to the north. She was a Cal Poly student for one academic school year, didn't quite finish the school year. So there isn't a big connection with her and her family here on the Central Coast. But for some reason, this really does pique the interest of residents who live here in the San Luis Obispo area. And whether that's from Cal Poly students who have been more recently attending Cal Poly, or even, in the case of Chris Lambert, just, being interested in this case and really just that desire that I talked about to have some sort of resolution, to sort of solve this case, to find out where she is. And obviously we're not sure that that's going to happen. There's never been a body discovered. There's really no smoking gun here. There's no, evidence that we know of so far that really is a turning point in this case. But what he was able to do is really sort of refocus. And I think one of the things that's interesting to talk about, right, is over the last 26 years, technology has really changed. So one of the things that you mentioned in your recap package was the fact that there's this social media, this Facebook page that really looks at evidence and continues to sort of bring these things up. And the podcast is another, podcasts are new, obviously, over the last 26 years. And I think he was kind of surprised by that. He really wanted to start this podcast. He wanted to kind of dig a little more deeply. And he came up with witnesses. We've done interviews with Sheriff Ian Parkinson, who said there were new witnesses discovered. There was new evidence discovered through that podcast that then they were able to sort of look at and use that to get additional search warrants. And so, when we say the new sheriff, he obviously was elected in 2011, so he's been the sheriff for a while. But that was almost one of his campaign slogans, if you will, that he was going to look at these cold cases, including the Kristen Smart case, and sort of not give up on that. And he actually appointed an investigator that was really just supposed to be looking at.
I really pray that they find out something this time, because this is taking too long. This has to be heartbreaking for the family. Guys, make sure you go ahead and like, comment, share, subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. My contact information is right below. My Venmo, my Cash App, and my email. Guys, I greatly appreciate each and every one of you being on here. Let's get some justice for Kristen Smith.
old cases. And when we saw these witnesses come forward in the podcast, that did change some things. You know, one of them was a big topic of discussion in court today during those motion hearings. A lady by the name of Jennifer Hudson, who claims on a podcast that she heard Paul Flores talk about getting rid of or burying the body. And so that's the big topic of conversation. You know, does Chris Lambert need to take the stand? Is there some reason to compel cross-examination? And so that was one of the things that they were really looking at, this new evidence that came forward in his investigation. And one of the things that's probably worth talking about, right, is that in this podcast, in his investigation, it's a podcast, right? So he may not have been following traditional sort of journalistic approaches to his investigation and maybe not law enforcement approaches to his investigation, but he did come up with really evidence that sort of kind of reinvigorated this desire to sort of solve this case.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you sort of touched on it earlier. There is no big smoking. It's not as if they walked into the Flores home and said, "Oh, here we go. We found the body," or this is still a very circumstantial case. And for people to think, okay, well, they got him, he's going down, we're gonna have to watch this play out, because this is not a slam dunk by any stretch of the imagination for the DA's prosecutor.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's certainly not, as a journalist, my job to sort of predict what's happening or what will ultimately happen in the case. But I was sitting in court on Monday of this week listening to jury selection for the jury. And as you mentioned, there's two separate juries, right? So this particular jury selection was for Ruben's jury, the father's jury. And the prosecutor, Chris Pavrell, was really talking about this idea of, you know, as jurors, are you going to be able to look at circumstantial evidence? Are you going to be able to infer from the evidence that we do have what may have happened beyond a reasonable doubt? He was really questioning jurors about that, because really there is no big evidence. You know, we've seen since the sheriff was elected to office, I think we've seen something like 18 search warrants since 2011 served, 91 additional witnesses either interviewed or re-interviewed once he sort of took over the sheriff's department and got his investigators looking at the case again. And so, you know, we've seen really digs. You know, we've seen excavators go up to the Cal Poly hillside and dig in some of the dirt up there by what's called the Cal Poly P, where it's kind of a popular hiking trail. And we've seen excavations under the two different homes that the Flores family owns, his mom in one of those houses and his dad in the other house. So we've seen those, you know, we've seen warrants, we've seen excavations, we've seen law enforcement go to his San Pedro home in Southern California and his sister's home in Washington. But so far, we haven't seen anything that, at least that's been released, that's a really big new piece of evidence.
Yeah, and there's a huge anticipation for money.
And another thing that I'm just thinking about, well, I've thought about this for quite some time. The whole thing in a nutshell, the mother of the Flores guy, the mother has never moved. Okay, so why haven't you ever moved? Okay, now it's expensive as hell out here in California. I'll be the first one to tell you. But my whole thing is, you're getting a bunch of publicity there at the house, probably all kind of cameras, and probably right now it's a bunch of damn cameras out there. Okay, in the beginning there was a bunch of cameras. Why didn't you ever move? And I'm thinking you never moved because you know the remains of little Miss Smart is there at that house. That's why you probably never ever moved.
Today in the opening statements, because we'll get a real guide from what the state has, and as they tell the jury that the evidence that they believe is going to be presented. This case was moved. Makes sense for it to have been moved because of the interest in it. No cameras in the case down in Monterey County. What is the interest in the Central Coast area, San Luis Obispo area, as we're going to trial there? I can't imagine. People must be just scrambling for any detail that comes out of that courthouse.
Yeah, and I think they always have, right? So we've certainly covered the story all along. Every time there's a new piece of evidence or a new search warrant that's issued, we're covering the story. Our audience is very much interested in what's going on. And, you know, I think it's kind of a good point. I was thinking about this when we were watching some of that backgrounder piece too. You know, my own son, was born in 1996, right? And so he's 26 years old and he grew up in this area. And one of the points that the defense was making in terms of requesting requesting that trial be moved is that really this case is almost part of the culture here, if you will. You know, my son grew up looking at the billboards and listening to the news coverage, and certainly I think a lot of the people who live here are really intensely familiar with the case, and that was obviously the reason for moving it, in order to make sure that they were able to seat an impartial jury and get a fair trial. But it really is kind of ingrained, if you will, kind of in the culture, both through the Cal Poly culture and really through the interest just in the surrounding community.
Yeah, and it is fascinating. It is a cloud over that over the area, and as you mentioned, the Smart family's not from there. It is, and Kristen was only there for a short period of time. It's the idea that this could happen here in this beautiful spot of the country and at an institution like Cal Poly, and the mystery of what happened to her. What happened to her? Obviously, the community's still gripped to it. Rich is going to stick around with us, and we're going to get a break in here. When we come back, we'll have much more on the disappearance of Kristen Smart. Before we go,
we ain't taking no break.
Coming up next hour on Closing Arguments. Tonight on Closing Arguments in Toledo, Ohio.
We ain't looking at that.
To search under the lower deck of their house in Arroyo Grande, California. Archaeologists reported finding an anomaly in the ground under the deck. And according to court documents, the anomaly was approximately 4 by 6 feet, giving it the size requirements to be big enough to be potentially a burial site for a human body.
Sad.
And in the soil in this anomaly appeared to have been disturbed. The archaeologists concluded, quote, the hole had been excavated and something removed. A month after this search warrant, Paul Flores was arrested and charged with murder, and his father charged with accessory after the fact. Still with us.
So they did say that it was a great possibility that her body was originally put there underneath the mother's home, and then later on it was moved. That's what I'm saying. I understand parents doing this type of shit. If you know your child, or you even think that your child could do some shit like this, how could you even help them do something like this? This is crazy.
Anchor at our affiliate KSBY, Richard Gearhart, is with us. And joining in the discussion, some great investigators give us some insight. In Los Angeles, retired FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon, and in Salt Lake City, private investigator Jason Jensen. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation. Richard, we were talking last segment about all the pretrial motions, et cetera, and some of that is going to be this archaeological and data experts that are going to come in, and the judge is saying, bring them in, even though the defense is basically saying, no, this is not reliable science.
Right, you know, and then Judge Jennifer O'Keefe decided during these the trial today that, you know, there is that type of evidence has been entered before into court cases, and so there is some background for archaeological digs for identifying these anomalies that you were talking about. I think probably one of the things to point out, though, is that I'm sure investigators, and you've got some other people on the panel here, you know, are hoping to find more than just an anomaly, or more than, you know, they do say that they found traces of human blood as identified by DNA, but they didn't find a body, they didn't find bones, they didn't find clothes. There's a bunch of things that, as far as we know, they didn't find. But yeah, Jennifer O'Keefe, the judge, the Superior Court judge, said all of that is admissible, that those expert witnesses can testify in this case.
Bobby, when you're down in LA, a few hours south, and this case has been in in the news in California for decades. What do you think of the evidence that is being brought to trial? Without a body, this is going to be tough, is it not, to get a conviction? And
it is.
We don't want to go back and say that there were all these missteps, but we will, because let's face it, 26 years ago there was interest in the suspect that is now standing trial. What stands out to you, the things that typically you would need to get to this spot to trial that aren't there? I guess a body's number one.
Well, yeah, I mean, you always want a body, right? But more and more, we're seeing cases move forward without a body, because you would never want a defendant to benefit from being really good at getting rid of a body, right? You don't want that to happen. So you want to be able to move forward with these cases. What's really struck me about this case is the persistence. Every couple of years, we've kind of had a flurry of activity on this case. Back in 2016, there was some things happening, and then it seems to quiet down. And then a couple of years later, you have a flurry of it. So
this
the
shit is
fact that the
taking too long.
investigators stuck with this case, and they've been trying everything they possibly can. And I will say this, that I've worked with prosecutors. Prosecutors do not move forward on a case like this unless they're confident they have enough to convict at trial. Prosecutors do not like to lose murder cases, and they know they only get one shot. With double jeopardy, you get one shot at a defendant like this. And so I think that in this case, whatever they have, maybe we know some of it, maybe we don't know all of it, they have enough that they feel confident that they're going to be able to get a conviction, or else they wouldn't be moving forward.
Let's pray so.
Jason, when you're an investigator in a case like this is a case that has haunted the Central Coast of California. But for the ones working on it who believe that Flores is the guy, it has to be a complete nightmare. It had to have been those 26 years. How difficult is it when you know you got him, you just don't have the goods? And what keeps you sort of up at night?
Right. Just like Bobby was saying, this case went from a cold case to active, back to cold again. And really the biggest problems that we all really sense here as we're preparing for trial, no body, no crime scene, no smoking gun, no cause of death. It sounds like there's really a lot in favor of the defense. But now we've introduced technology. We got the blood evidence from the ground. We know from past experience, you can actually extract DNA from blood in soil. So how much of this is really going to pinpoint the fact that it's conclusive that there was a body under Ruben Flores's deck versus how much of this was really just supported by innuendo and a need to convict somebody that was a person of interest from day one?
Yeah, if it's just a hole that looks like it might have been a hole that was 4 by 6, that's interesting, but it's not going to.
This lady, this little young girl, Mrs. Little Smart, she was just going to college, minding her own damn business. She went to an event. She met this little Flores guy. They walked towards the dormitory. He went into the dormitory, evidently by himself. He knew she was tipsy. He is claiming that he allowed her to walk by herself. She was never found again. Are we supposed to believe that?
Get you a conviction. Richard, the story is also a huge part of this case. The story of what happened that night, the story of Paul Flores. And there's going to be some witnesses that come on that the judge is allowing, some females that say that he acted inappropriately while they were inebriated. What can you tell us about that sort of storyline that the state is going to try to project to this jury, that Paul Flores is the guy, and look how he acted with these people?
I heard somebody say not too long ago that that's a big part of a case, right? Is this sort of character assessment, that the jury is going to look at the evidence, but they also look at the character of the person involved. And so he has had some run-ins with the law. He did have
ain't no angel.
A DUI arrest not too long ago. He has had these other people come forward and accuse him of sexual aggression toward them. Now, some of that was actually blocked today. Not all of that will be admitted, but some of it will be admitted. And so that was kind of a mixed decision from the judge today. But yeah, and there was actually during the preliminary hearing this request to sort of move forward with also potentially charging him with rape during the commission of this alleged murder, and that was not allowed to move forward during the preliminary part of the hearing either.
Bobby, when you have a theory, you're an investigator, you're looking at this and you think you know what happened, you're not getting any cooperation from the suspect. How difficult is it to really go with your gut and know that you're right when you don't have that evidence, the whole thing, the whole picture? How difficult how frustrating is it when we're involved in a case like this?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's very frustrating. I'm sure some of the initial investigators are long retired by now when you have a case that goes this long. And when you retire and you have something like this unsolved, you take it with you into retirement, and it becomes very frustrating, especially when you know you have the guy. Like he was a suspect from almost day one, right? He's the last person seen with her and stuff. So, it was just an accumulation of, they would get a piece, but not enough. And then they would get another piece and it's still not enough. And so I'm sure it's been very frustrating, but the perseverance of these investigators and of the sheriff down there and of the people really impresses me. And I think that I think this evidence, while there's not a smoking gun per se, I think they've got an accumulation of evidence on all of these different aspects of the case that they feel taken in total is going to win the day with the jury.
Yeah, tell that story to the jury and to the point where they can and achieve a conviction. That's the goal for prosecutors. Richard Gearhart, KSBY anchor, thank you so much for your valuable time. We'll be checking in with you hopefully throughout the trial. I know you'll be a very busy man over the next weeks and months as this.
The charge against Paul Flores is murder.
There you go.
It is alleged that Mr. Flores caused the death of Kristen Smart while in the commission of or attempted rape. That is first-degree murder under California law. Rubin is charged with accessory after the fact to murder. The allegation against Rubin is that he helped to conceal Kristen's body after the murder was committed.
Well, it really just follows some basic common sense. What they did was they had cadaver dogs that are alerted to under the deck. And then they use something less intrusive than digging. You know, they use the ground penetrating radar to see if there's any anomalies under the ground, which it detected that there was density changes as if there was, something dug in the soil.
There you go. If it was some density changes, they hit it right on the head. There's a great possibility that her body was there at one point, and then she was relocated to another location. This is weird.
Was replaced. So that's usually characteristic of once upon a time. Anyone that's familiar with a clandestine grave, that at some point or another the remains of the body had been removed and then the soil replaced. So when you get cadaver dogs and you have archaeological anomalies such as that, it really is going to be an alert to law enforcement in a murder investigation if somebody had a body there at one point or another.
Bobby, you could hear the defense attorney saying, though, are you kidding me? Just because it's 4x6, now there's a body there? It could have been anything.
Facts.
Sure, but Ted, normally this kind of evidence is not introduced in a vacuum. So hypothetically, if you have a witness come in and say, well, he told me he moved the body, or if they overheard him, they at one point they were listening in on his cell phone or they were monitoring his text.
Okay, tell me this. If anything could have been there, okay, according to what he just said, if anything could have been there, then why not ask the family what was there? Okay, what was there? Because it's obvious something was there. Okay, and I'm thinking, why couldn't it have been little Miss Smart that was there and then they turned around and moved her later on? Ask the damn family. What was there? If something was there and it was moved, then what was it if it wasn't Smart?
If he texted with his dad and they have other evidence that indicates, the body was there at one point, then they would dig and they come up with a small amount of biological material that they can say was human remains. That kind of corroborates what your other witnesses or other evidence is saying. So it's got to be taken as part of, like you said earlier, the story that the prosecution is going to walk the jury through. None of these things are going to be taken in a vacuum. They're all going to kind of hopefully add pieces to this story that the prosecution is going to build.
I want to state for the record that, so that it's clear as you begin, that other than confirming Paul Flores' name, he does not intend to answer any questions, and on my advice will invoke the Fifth Amendment on all questions.
In 1997, the family of Kristen Smart filed a wrongful death civil lawsuit against Paul Flores, which resulted in Paul and his father, Reuben, sitting for depositions. Now, as you saw there, Paul invoked his Fifth Amendment right during 99% of that deposition, didn't answer any questions, but it was recorded and we can watch it. So tonight we're gonna bring in our body language expert.
Bring it.
She can read what people are thinking.
Break it down.
Even though they're not talking. So let's bring her in. She's in Wells, Maine tonight. She is not only a body language expert, but she is New York Times best-selling author of You Can't Lie to Me. Janine Driver's back with us.
Come on, break it down.
See you.
Nice to see you.
You can also check her out on TikTok at Body Language Institute. So let's do this. Let's take a look at some of this Paul Flores deposition back in 1997. So this is a while ago. And let's see what you pick up.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Would you state your full name for the record, please?
Paul Ruben Flores.
And what is your date of birth, sir?
10/22/76.
What is your present residence address?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Did you report your 85 Nissan truck stolen in San Diego recently?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
In May of '96, were you a student at Cal Poly?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Please provide me with the employment positions that you have held since you started high school.
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Are you presently employed?
On the advice of my attorney, I
Damn,
refuse
you
to
can't
answer
say
that question
shit.
based on the Fifth
That's
Amendment
weird.
of the United States Constitution.
Where do you presently reside?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Where did you attend high school?
On the advice of my attorney,
Oh my
I refuse
God.
to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
What is the name of your father?
On the advice of my attorney,
Oh, Jesus.
I refuse to answer that
What'd he
question
come for?
based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
What is your mother's name?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
What is your sister's name?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Does your mother have a sister?
On the advice of my attorney,
Wow.
I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Prior to moving to the Arroyo Grande area, where did you reside?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States
He
Constitution.
ain't talking today.
Were you employed at Garland's in Grover Beach at any time in your life?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Have you ever been employed at a Union 76 station in the San Luis Obispo County area?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question.
Come on now, this is weird.
Of the United States Constitution.
What is the name of your supervisor? Strike that. What was the name of your supervisor at Garland's?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
What were the nature of your job duties at Garland's?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Did you cook hamburgers at Garland's?
On the advice of my
Come on
attorney,
now,
I refuse
this
to
is
answer
weird.
that questions based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
How old are you?
On the advice of my attorney, I refuse to answer that question based on the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
In what year?
Break it down
All right,
now.
Janine.
Break it
All
down.
I heard was the same thing. What did you see?
Me too.
Okay, Ted, first to start off, I want you to think that to the average person, you probably didn't see much. It looks like he's frozen. It looks like it's the same. But the difference between boiling water and not boiling water is 1 degree. All we need is this 1 degree, this tiny little movements, and that we see those.
Break it down, girl. Break it down.
This little bit of a boiling over. Now we see this stiffness, but right out of the gate, what we see with Paul is he does this little tongue jut. And this tongue jut is, oops, I'm busted. Oops, I'm going to get away with this. So it's either or. It's either I'm busted or I'm going to get away with it. But we see this little tongue come out right after he swears himself in. He takes the oath. Then, this is very interesting. I'm curious about the mother's sister, because when he's asked about the mother's sister, Ted, what we're seeing here is this. He does this little bit of a snarl and he shows us his teeth. And this teeth baring typically is I got caught doing something I shouldn't have done. So it makes me wonder if his mother's sister maybe doubts him or maybe knows some information that might be valuable to the case that's about to be in front of the jury. So we see some of these movements also with his head tilted. Granted, he is looking off to his right reading, but he keeps this head tilted to his right the whole entire time. And here's
all I see is straight weirdness up in the camp. Straight weirdness. You cannot tell me, guys, allegedly, you cannot tell me that this guy didn't have anything to do with the disappearance of this little girl. This is crazy. And I'm calling it a little girl. She was a grown woman. She was going to college. She was trying to do something positive in life. And then she turned around and met this fool, and then all hell broke loose.
The deal, Ted, and you at home. There's something called REA, and it's called right ear advantage. When stress is high and our cognitive thinking is through the roof, or there's a lot of happening around us, we hear more and retain more and process more with our right ear. So this is important. If you're ever in a meeting and there's a bunch of other noise, listen with your right ear unless you have ear problems with that right ear. So it's called REA. And in the old days, back in the 60s and 70s, we thought it just goes from the age of 5 for little kids learning new things with this cognitive overload to the age of 13. But just in the last couple of years, Ted, what we've discovered with research is this continues as we get older. It does deteriorate a little bit. So this right ear angled towards his attorney is very interesting to me. It's the whole time it's saying what my attorney has to say is more important than the questions that you're asking me. So pay attention, and you're in a crowded room or stress is high and you've got a lot going on, internal dialogue, and people are talking. Do you lend your right ear? I bet you do.
Yeah, well, I just caught myself doing it to you while you were telling us all about it. Always fascinating to listen to Janine analyze something.
Anyway, guys, thank you for being here. We just finished talking about the David D. for VD case. If you have not seen the beginning of this live, go ahead and rewind it and you'll be able to see it. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Guys, make sure you go ahead, like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will keep you up to date on both cases, guys. My contact information is right below here. You have my Venmo, my Cash App, and my email. All right? I'll talk to y'all soon. Y'all have a blessed day.